Welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. How was your day? Did everything go smoothly? It's finally my favorite time of day, sitting here and sharing my paranormal experiences with all of you. Thank you so much for always supporting the channel and for sending in so many of your own stories. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our latest videos. Now get cozy in bed, switch on your nightlight, and let's listen to today's paranormal experiences together. So, this happened to me more than 10 years ago, which means I was probably 9, maybe 10. Back then, our house layout was kind of weird in a way that's hard to explain unless you've walked it. It was like a loop. You could start in the kitchen and dining area, go through one door into my dad's music room, cut through into my parents' bedroom, then take this long hallway past all the kids' rooms, and boom, you'd end up back where you started. Like the house was one big circle you could keep walking forever if you wanted. Anyway, it was a Sunday morning, and my older sister, Nadia, and I were getting ready for church. I remember I was in the dining area eating cereal, but not sitting like a normal person. I was standing at the counter, half awake, shoveling bites in like I had somewhere important to be. Nadia was nearby fussing with her hair in the mirror, doing that concentrated stare people do when they're trying to get a ponytail perfect. And then we heard it. This rapid click 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 sound, like a dog running on tile with nails that haven't been trimmed in way too long. The door between the dining area and the music room was wide open, and I swear on everything, I saw something dart out of the music room. It was gray, skinny, low to the ground. It moved so fast, but my brain latched onto these sharp details. Long limbs, a bony spine, the way it ran on all fours like it didn't want to be seen upright. It slid right under our dining table like it had done it 100 times. And the first thing that flashed in my mind, this is so specific but I can't unsee it, was Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Like that vibe. Not exactly the same, just that same kind of wrong-looking thinness, only smaller, almost like a child-sized version. I couldn't see its face. It was hunched and moving too quickly, like it knew I was watching and didn't care. For a second, I just froze, spoon in my mouth, because my brain was trying to decide whether I'd actually seen something or if I was still half dreaming. Then I looked at Nadia, and she was staring too, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. This expression like, "Please tell me you saw that." So I knew I wasn't imagining it. I put my cereal down on the nearest counter so fast I nearly spilled it, and I just ran. Nadia ran with me. We bolted out of the dining room and down that long hallway, using the loop of the house like an escape route, straight to my parents' bedroom. We burst in there talking over each other, breathless, panicked, trying to explain. Something gray, something crawling, something under the table. And I started crying. Like real crying. Not "I'm upset" crying. More like my body was dumping fear out through my face because it didn't know what else to do. My mom, Marisol, sat up, confused, and she did that calm parent voice right away. She was like, Hey, don't worry. It was me. I was looking for something." She told us she'd lost a microphone and was crawling around trying to find it. Which, I mean, sure, if you want to say that out loud. But Nadia and I just looked at each other like, no, that was not our mother. We both knew. The movement wasn't human. The shape wasn't right. And also, no offense to Marisol, but my mom was not out here scuttling like a hairless gremlin under the dining table at church o'clock. Nadia hated talking about anything she couldn't explain. That's just how she is. If it doesn't fit into a box, she'd rather never open the lid again. So the story kind of died. We grew up. Life moved on. We didn't bring it up much. Until about 3 years ago, and my mom's face changed. Not like she was annoyed. Not like she didn't remember. More like she remembered too well. And that's when she finally admitted, okay, It wasn't me. She said she only told us that because we were little and terrified, and she wanted to make us feel safe. But there was something else behind her eyes, like she was choosing her words carefully. So I pushed a little, and Nadia, even though she hates this stuff, pushed too. And finally my mom told us why she'd lied so quickly. Because she had seen it before. My parents built that house in the early 2000s. When they first moved in, my dad was working late nights, so for the first few days my mom would be there alone at night. She said she kept feeling this heavy dread, like the air in the house was pressing down on her. That kind of fear that doesn't come from a thought. It just shows up in your body like it belongs there. Then one night, she said she heard that same sound. Nails on tile. Clicking, fast, moving. And it sounded like it was coming from near the closet, close to the music room side of the house. She told us she woke up and couldn't move, like her body was locked in place. She could open her eyes, she could breathe, but she couldn't sit up or turn her head the way she wanted. And at the foot of the bed, she saw it. Not a blur, not a shadow. A small figure. A little man, she said. Gray, hairless, just standing there, watching her. She told us she squeezed her eyes shut and started praying. Not even like a polite prayer, more like a desperate, God, please help me kind of prayer. And she kept praying until she fell asleep. After that, she said it never happened again, at least not to her, until the morning Nadia and I came running into her room, sobbing, describing the exact same thing. And I remember sitting there as an adult hearing this, and feeling my stomach drop in the exact same way it did when I was a kid. Like my body recognized the truth before my brain did. Because it wasn't just something weird we saw once. It was, my mom saw it first. In the same house, with the same sound, the same description. I told her, why didn't you ever tell us? And she just looked, torn, like she'd carried it for years and didn't want to hand it to us too. I'll be honest with you, I've had a couple other experiences that feel similar, and I don't even know what to do with that. I go back and forth between trying to rationalize it and realizing some things don't neatly fit into rational explanations. And yeah, I looked up possible explanations over time. One that really got under my skin was duende, because the second I read about it, I got that sick, sinking feeling like, oh, that's what it felt like. I don't know what it was. I just know what I saw. And I know my sister saw it too. Hey. So before I tell you this, I just want to be really clear about something. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm not here to prove the paranormal is real. I just want to share something that happened to me. Something I still can't shake. So, my name is Caio. I'm Brazilian, and I grew up around an Afro-Brazilian spiritual tradition where mediumship isn't some rare, dramatic thing. It's just part of life. Like, normal. People in my family would incorporate spirits during rituals, and you'd hear prayers and songs and all that in the house like it was everyday background noise. But my experience has always been a little different. Most of my relatives connect through incorporation. Me? I've always been the one who sees. And I don't mean gets a feeling. I mean I can actually see them, and sometimes talk to them like they're standing right there. My mom, Renata, is the most spiritually advanced person I've ever met. She's basically a leader in our religion, the kind of person who's so connected that it doesn't even seem weird when you hear her speaking out loud to spirits while she's cooking or folding clothes. That was just my childhood. This happened when I was around, I don't know, somewhere between 11 and 13. We were having money problems, so the sleeping arrangements got cramped. I ended up sharing a room with my older sister, She's adopted, and my cousin who had moved in with us for a while. Back then, I didn't fully understand what was going on with my cousin. I only learned later that she'd struggled with drugs and had been trying to quit. But she was slipping again around that time. And I swear to you, the atmosphere around her was heavy. Like the air felt dirty. Everything about that period had this energy, even when nothing was happening. Anyway, one night in the middle of summer, I went to bed like always. Nothing unusual. And then, I woke up. Not slowly, not groggy. I snapped awake like my body had hit an alarm. I remember looking at my phone because I needed to anchor myself in something real, and the time was 3:07 a.m. I still remember that so clearly, like it got carved into my brain. And the first thing I felt was this pressure, like something was pressing down on my entire presence. Not physically. It wasn't like someone was on top of me. It was more like that primal fear your body produces when it thinks you're about to die. Like your instincts are screaming, you are not safe. I turned my head and scanned the room, trying to convince myself it was just a nightmare. And then I looked toward my cousin's bed, and I saw it. There was something standing over her, something tall, way too tall. It didn't look like a person. No hair, no real features I could make out. Just this stretched, shadow-like form, like darkness shaped into a body by the little bits of light in the room. It wasn't transparent. It wasn't misty. It looked present. I froze, and I just stared. I couldn't even think. My mind went blank except for one thought repeating over and over. Don't react. Don't react. Don't react. Minutes passed. I'm not exaggerating when I say it felt like forever. I remember checking the time again later and realizing I had been staring for something like 20 minutes, maybe more, hoping it would vanish the way some things do. But it didn't. And that's when I realized something that made it even worse. I wasn't paralyzed. I could move. So I started thinking maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe I was half asleep. Maybe it was my brain playing tricks on me. And then I remembered something my mom had told me since I was little. Like a rule you live by when you grow up seeing things other people don't. Basically, don't acknowledge. Don't feed it. Don't make yourself a target. So I forced myself to get up like everything was normal. My hands were shaking, but I acted casual, like I was just thirsty. I went to the kitchen, drank water, and splashed my face. I did it a few times, kind of like a ritual. Like if I reset my body, maybe I'd reset my vision too. Then I walked back to the room, and when I looked again, it wasn't over my cousin anymore. It was standing over my sister, just watching her sleep. And that contrast, oh my God, it messed me up. My sister looked so calm, so safe, so innocent in that moment. And that thing was just looming over her like it owned the space. I got back into bed, trying to breathe quietly, trying to act like I didn't notice it. But I couldn't stop watching from the corner of my eye. I stayed awake for what felt like hours, my whole body tight, waiting for the moment it would move again. Eventually, I must have drifted off from pure exhaustion. And then I woke up again. And it was over me, right above my bed. Not across the room, not near someone else. Me. And I could feel that it was looking directly at my face. I wanted to scream so badly my throat hurt, but I remembered my mom's voice. I remembered the rule. Fear makes you visible. Fear opens doors. Fear is like shouting, I see you, I see you, I see you. So I didn't scream. I shut my eyes as hard as I could and I just cried. Silent. Hot tears running into my ears. I was just a kid, trying to survive the night by pretending nothing was happening. When morning came, the sun hit the room and everything was normal. Birds, light, regular sounds in the house. My cousin got up like always. My sister was fine. Nobody mentioned anything. Nobody seemed to feel it but me. And I never saw that exact entity again. But I'll tell you this. Out of everything I've seen in my life, all the spirits, all the presences, all the strange moments, that was the only one that made me feel truly, genuinely unsafe. And even now, whenever I sense something that feels wrong, something cold, something predatory, I remember my mom's advice, and I pretend I don't see it. Okay, so I'm not totally sure if this is something genuinely strange, or if it's just my brain playing the world's most annoying game of coincidence. For about a year now, it's been happening on and off. I'll have a dream, and then the next day, something from that dream shows up in real life. Not in a dramatic, I predicted the lottery numbers way. More like these weird, pointless little moments that don't actually change anything. Except they make me feel unsettled. And lately it feels like it's happening more often. Like one time, I swear this is real. I dreamed I walked into the staff break room at work, and sitting at this tiny table were these two famous brothers, the Hawthorne brothers, just casually having coffee like they belonged there. And even in the dream, I remember thinking, wait, don't they hate each other? It felt so random. The next morning, I wake up, still half asleep, and the first thing I do is scroll social media. First post I see? A headline about their band announcing this huge reunion tour. And what makes it creepier is I'm not even a diehard fan. I don't listen to them constantly. They weren't on my mind. It was just there. Dream first, then reality. But the one that really got me was about our puppies. We had two little pups, Miso and Clover, and they were due to be spayed. The night before, I dreamed I was talking to my dad, Martin, and he said they couldn't do the surgery because the puppies were all fused together inside, and they'd need a specialist. I woke up feeling gross about it, but I told myself, okay, I'm just anxious. That's all this is. Still, that morning I told my dad about the dream, kind of joking, kind of not. And then I told one of my clients about it too, mostly because I wanted to say it out loud and laugh it off like it was nothing. And then, this is the part that makes my stomach flip even now. My client is leaving, and we both see my dad out on the driveway. And he tells me, they couldn't do the spay. One puppy had something like a false pregnancy going on, and the other, they'd started the operation and found that everything inside was all tangled and not where it should be. The vet had stopped and said she'd need to see a specialist. My client actually froze and went, "Oh my God, didn't you literally just tell me that dream?" I was honestly relieved I'd told someone beforehand, because otherwise it would have sounded like I was making it up after the fact. But at the same time, I felt sick, because I hadn't made it up. I'd dreamed it. Even the money part was weird. In the dream, my dad said the specialist would cost £1,600 for both pups. In reality, the one puppy who actually saw the specialist cost £800. The second puppy hasn't been spayed since, so I still don't even know if she has the same issue or not. Which, honestly, makes my brain want to spiral if I let it. And then there was another one, more recent, that wasn't even connected to anything practical, just emotionally disturbing. I told my mom I dreamed my sister Eliza was pregnant again. And separately, my sister told our mom she dreamed I was pregnant, except in her dream, the baby didn't survive. We both had those dreams the same night, the night before, completely unconnected, like neither of us prompted the other. And it's not like it makes sense either. I don't plan on having kids, and she doesn't have any immediate plans for another one. So why would we both dream something like that on the same night about each other? And that's the thing. Most of these dreams are random and pointless. They don't do anything. They don't warn me of something I can stop. They don't give me some heroic message. They just show up, and then life mirrors them back at me like it's winking. But I'm at the point now where I don't know what to do with it mentally. Because when the dreams are harmless, like some celebrity reunion, fine, whatever. But when I have a horrible dream about someone getting sick, or dying, or something going wrong, I wake up anxious, and I don't know if I'm supposed to treat it like nonsense or like a sign. And I don't even know what I believe in, so I don't know what sign would even mean. I just know it makes me tense and scared, like I'm waiting for something awful to happen. And to make it even more complicated, my dad has had this kind of thing his whole life. These small, strange dreams that seem to happen the next day. Usually pointless stuff, but enough that when I told him about mine, he didn't laugh. He just kind of nodded like, yeah, that happens. So I'm left sitting with this weird question that I can't quite shake. Is this just my brain noticing patterns and getting lucky with timing? Or is something genuinely odd going on? And more than anything, I just want to know if other people have experienced this too, because I'm starting to feel nervous every time I wake up from a dream that feels too specific. So, a couple weeks ago, my friend Maya came over, just to hang out. Nothing weird, totally normal night. At one point, I went to the bathroom, and she stayed out in the hallway waiting for me. Later, after she'd gone home, she texted me something like, "Okay, don't freak out," and I could tell she was hesitating, like she didn't want to plant something scary in my head. She told me the hallway felt noticeably colder than the rest of the house, and not just old house drafty cold, more like the air had weight to it. She said she had this intense feeling that something was there with her, like a presence leaning in close, almost hovering over her shoulder. And the reason that unsettled me so much is because it wasn't even the first time the hallway had done something like that. About a year before Maya ever came over, I was home alone one day. Quiet house, nothing on, just me and my dog. And then I heard it. A man's voice coming from the hallway. Not muffled, not far away, like someone was actually standing there talking. My stomach dropped so fast. I genuinely thought someone had broken in. I had my phone in my hand ready to call the police, and I was trying to stay calm and listen. Like, what do I do right now? And then my dog. She didn't bark. She didn't growl. She didn't run. She just froze, like statue still, staring straight toward the hallway. And that part is what made it 10 times worse, because my brain immediately went, she sees him. She's looking at the man. I checked the entire house, closets, rooms, behind doors, everything. And then I checked again because I didn't trust it. No one was there. Nothing was open. Nothing was disturbed. Just empty. After Maya told me what she felt, I brought it up to my dad. I wasn't even dramatic about it. I was just like, hey, this is going to sound weird, but Maya said the hallway felt off. And my dad just kind of nodded, like it wasn't surprising. He told me he's felt it too, like a presence in the hallway. And he's also heard a man's voice before. Except he said to him it sounded older than what I heard, like a more elderly man. That's when it stopped feeling like a one-off moment, or maybe I imagined it, and started feeling like, okay, this is a pattern. So I did what I knew to do. I cleansed the house with white sage, opened all the windows, tried to make it feel light and fresh, told myself I was clearing everything out. And honestly, for a while, it did feel calmer, like the air in the house wasn't so tense. But then 2 nights ago, my dad told me something that made my skin go cold. He said he woke up around 2 a.m., and the second he opened his eyes, he felt this wave of dread. Not like anxiety about something in life, like that deep instinctual dread where your body is screaming something is wrong. He said he felt like something was watching him from the hallway, like it was just standing there, paying attention. And the thing is, our current house doesn't have some creepy history we know about. The couple who owned it before us built it themselves. They're still alive. They're the only people who lived here before we did. No big tragic story attached to the place. Nothing that would make you immediately go, "Oh, that explains it." But here's the part that complicates everything. When my dad was younger, years and years ago, not even in this house, he used to be curious about the other side. The stuff people don't understand. The things you're not supposed to invite in. But he has this belief that's always stuck with him. Once you open a door, it never fully closes. And that hits hard because our last house was bad. Like genuinely, heavily haunted. Both of us would see things. Not maybe I saw something in the corner of my eye, but things that made you stop breathing for a second. The energy in that place was heavy and dark. And when I say dark, I mean it felt mean. Like it wanted you uncomfortable. We tried everything back then. We saged, we prayed, we did all the normal things. We even had someone come cleanse it, someone who claimed they knew what they were doing. Nothing worked. And what's terrifying is that in that last house, most of the things I experienced were also in the hallway. So now I'm sitting here wondering if this is something my dad unknowingly brought with him, like it latched on a long time ago. Or if this house already had something here that's just reacting to us being here. Because in this house, for a long time, I didn't really sense anything directly. It was more like I'd randomly feel uneasy, like I was being watched. But I didn't have big experiences. Until the voice. Until Maya. Until my dad waking up at 2 a.m. with that dread. And I asked him something after he told me, because I needed to know. I said, "When you felt it watching you, was it just a presence? Or did it feel negative?" And he didn't hesitate. He said it felt a little negative. Bad. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I've already saged the house. We burn incense pretty often. We try to keep things calm and positive. But this hallway thing keeps showing itself just enough to make me wonder if it's getting stronger, or if it's been here the whole time and we're only now noticing. And honestly, I don't know what to do next. I just know it doesn't feel like nothing anymore. So, right after high school, I was playing in this scrappy little garage band with a couple friends. Me, Jonah on bass, and Maya on guitar. We somehow stumbled into the most ridiculous practice space you could imagine. This giant old house the state had renovated. The upstairs had been turned into county offices, but the downstairs was basically untouched. Big rooms, high ceilings, thick doors. The kind of place that somehow makes even a cheap amp sound expensive. Jonah's grandparents, Evelyn and Frank, worked there. Worked there. They were the only two people running the place most days. And for whatever reason, they trusted us. They'd lock up for the evening, wave us in like we belonged, and let us rehearse downstairs after hours. We could play loud, record, stash our gear, all of it, completely free. I still don't know how we got that lucky. The house itself felt like a mansion someone tried to make cozy. Built sometime in the 60s, I think. Hardwood floors, heavy trim, wide staircases, and this weird, clean smell that never quite matched how old it was. And the acoustics, oh my God. Everything rang in a way that made you want to keep playing just to hear it bounce back at you. But there was always this feeling. Not like footsteps or cold spots or anything you'd see in a movie. Just this lingering sense that the building was aware of you. Like you were guests, and it hadn't decided whether it liked you yet. We ignored it because, come on, free practice space in a beautiful building? We weren't about to get picky. We played there for a couple years, mostly at night. And as a group, we had a few small moments that made us glance at each other like, "Did you feel that?" But nothing really compared to what happened to me one night. It was a normal rehearsal. Loud, sweaty, excited. One of those nights where a new song is almost taking shape, and you can feel it starting to breathe. After a while, we took a break. Jonah was fussing with his tuning, Maya was digging through a notebook of lyrics, and I said something classy like, "I gotta pee," and got up. We were set up in this big room with the best sound. From where my drum kit was, there was a long hallway behind me that led toward the garage. At the very end of that hallway was this tiny bathroom. Just a small door, a little sink, basic stuff. I'd walked down there 100 times. It was always dark, sure, but it was familiar. So I start down the hallway, half thinking about the beat we'd been working on, half hurrying because I wanted to get back and keep playing. And I'm telling you, when I was just a few steps from that bathroom door, I stopped like I'd hit an invisible wall. Nothing touched me. No wind, no sound, no footsteps. It wasn't physical. It was a feeling. But not like nervousness, not like being spooked. It was anger. This sudden, sharp, unmistakable anger that felt like it was right in my face, like something I couldn't see was leaning into my space, furious, and daring me to take one more step. I froze, totally frozen. My stomach dropped and my whole body went tight, like my brain hit some ancient emergency switch. And the message was so clear it might as well have been shouted. Don't. Not maybe you shouldn't. Not you're scaring yourself. It was a hard, final, absolute do not. I stood there for a second, trying to force myself to rationalize it, trying to be normal. But the closer I even thought about taking another step, the more intense that rage felt, like it would punish me for pushing it. Just, okay. Then I turned around and walked back down the hallway, as calmly as I could manage, like I wasn't completely rattled. When I got back into the room, Jonah and Maya were still doing their thing, chatting like nothing in the world was wrong. I tried to play it cool, but I know my face gave me away. They asked what happened and I told them, kind of stumbling over the words, that something didn't want me in that hallway. That I was walking to the bathroom and this presence shut it down, like I'd been warned. And I know how that sounds. Trust me, I do. But I swear it wasn't imagination spiraling. There was no creeping, I scared myself buildup. It was instant, like flipping a switch. I ended up going upstairs to use the bathroom near the offices, where the lights were brighter and everything felt more normal. And even then, I kept thinking about that moment, how precise it was, how personal it felt, like I'd crossed into someone's space without permission. And here's the thing, we weren't drinking, we weren't getting high. We treated those sessions like work. We were so careful, quiet when we arrived, respectful, cleaned up after ourselves, because we knew how rare it was to have a place like that. We didn't want to risk losing it. Later, out of curiosity, we tried to look into the building's history. Anything, fires, deaths, some headline, some story that would make it all click into place. Nothing. At least nothing we could find. Eventually, life shifted the way it does. People moved, schedules changed, the band kind of scattered. We left town. Years later, I heard the house was abandoned again, like it just slipped back into silence once nobody was officially using it. And I still think about that hallway sometimes. I still feel it in my chest when I remember it. That pure, wordless rage. That hard line in the air that said, "Not tonight. Not ever." I've never felt anything like it before or since. And honestly, I really hope I never do again. Hey, before I start, I need you to know something about me. I'm not some paranormal investigator with gadgets and a YouTube channel. I'm just a person who's had a lot of personal experiences, and I've always been kind of sensitive to it. Maybe it's because I've lost everyone in my family over the years. Maybe that opened something up in me. Or maybe it just made me pay attention in a different way. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I see something peeking around a door, a window, a wall, whatever, my first reaction is not calm curiosity. I don't go, "Ah, yes, fascinating." I get scared, like real stomach-drop fear. And I think that's normal. Our bodies are literally built to notice weird patterns and react fast. That's survival wiring. But here's the thing I can't stop thinking about. What if we're not the only ones trying to survive? What if the things we call unseen are moving through their own version of existence, whatever that even means, and they're navigating fear too? Because after a handful of encounters across my life, I've started to believe something that sounds simple, but it kind of flipped everything for me. I think they peak for the same reason we peak: curiosity and vulnerability. Like, think about it. If something wanted to terrify you, it wouldn't hide behind a door frame at a weird angle. It could just step right into the middle of the room and commit. But instead, it's usually this half-visible, cautious, almost hesitant presence, like it's putting a barrier between you and it. And we always assume visibility means power, right? Like if it can show itself, it must be strong. But what if it's the opposite? What if being visible is when they're more exposed? So peeking is a way to stay protected. Like, I'm here, but not too here. And honestly, I wonder sometimes if our fear response is useful to them too. Like if we freeze or back away, maybe that's enough for them to set a boundary. Almost like the message is, "Don't come in here." That might explain why they show up from those strange places, like the top corner of a doorway or the edge of a high window. It feels eerie, but it's also strategic, out of reach, safer. And I also don't think what we see is necessarily what they are. Their appearance could be our brain trying to interpret something it doesn't have a template for, or it could be them choosing a form we'll recognize, or both. I genuinely don't know. None of us can really know. But I do know this. It doesn't mean I'm going to stroll up to one if I see it. Because listen, if you were hiding behind something, and the person you were afraid of suddenly rushed toward you, even if you weren't trying to hurt them, you'd probably defend yourself. Animals do the same thing. That instinct is everywhere. So if these entities are real, and if they're vulnerable in their own way, it makes sense they'd react similarly. And there's another piece to this that I don't hear people talk about enough. If they can affect our energy, we can probably affect theirs too. Maybe that's why so many encounters happen when people are alone, or already feeling raw, like grief, exhaustion, stress. Those states might change something about us that makes us easier to notice, or harder to ignore. And maybe they don't want to be around us any more than we want to be around them. Maybe we feel overwhelming. Maybe we're loud to them, emotionally. Okay, so here's where this gets personal. Anyway, old buildings, old shelters especially, they hold a kind of weight, not just dust and peeling paint, emotional weight, because people pass through those places during the hardest chapters of their lives. And sometimes, people don't make it out of those chapters. A few weeks back, I was staying briefly in this really old support shelter, nearly 100 years old at least. They've renovated it here and there, but it's mostly patch on top of patch, like the building is holding itself together out of habit. And the moment I walked in, I felt it. The air was heavy. Not physically, more like emotionally. Like grief soaked into the walls. Like the place remembered too much. One night, I was asleep in the women's ward, 5 of us in the room. And I'm a light sleeper, always have been. I snapped awake because I felt movement, like someone shifting near the doorway. And immediately, I felt that presence feeling. You know the one, when the room feels occupied even if you can't explain why. I looked toward the open doorway and saw what looked like an older man's face and shoulder, just barely visible, peeking in. Not fully stepping in, just watching. And my mind went, that makes no sense, because this was the women's area. The odds of an elderly man wandering around in there at night were basically none. The light switch was right beside my bed, so I reached over and flicked it on. Instantly, gone. No footsteps, no shuffle, no shadow retreating. Just absence. And I laid there with my heart pounding, trying to talk myself out of it, trying to convince myself it was a half dream. But deep down, what it actually reinforced was that idea I keep circling back to. They don't usually want confrontation either. It felt less like a threat and more like a cautious check-in, like curiosity that got too close. And I swear, part of me almost laughed afterward because I imagined the other side of it. Like maybe it was thinking, wait, she can see me? And panicked right back out of sight. So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I'm still scared when it happens. I don't think that makes me weak. I think it makes me human. But I also can't shake the feeling that sometimes the thing peeking from the doorway isn't a predator. Sometimes it might be something just as startled as we are. And I really do want to know what you think about that. So, I want to tell you something really personal, and I'm trusting you with it. For as long as I can remember, my family's had a lot of mental illness and trauma running through it, like this heavy thread woven into everything. And for me, it showed up in a bunch of diagnoses over the years: major depression, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, and eventually psychosis. The kind that doesn't just feel off, but terrifying. It got so bad that I ended up being involuntarily admitted to a psych ward. And I'm not saying that lightly. It was brutal. I was hearing this constant voice, always there, feeding me disgusting thoughts, twisting everything, telling me I should kill myself. It felt relentless, like I couldn't get even one quiet moment to breathe. Around that time, I was taking a stimulant I'd been prescribed, Adderall XR, and honestly, I think it made things worse. I'd also been smoking weed a lot before all this, but the scariest part was, even after I quit, the psychosis didn't just disappear. It lingered. Weeks went by and the voice was still there, like it had planted itself in me. And the truth is, I couldn't find a neat, sensible explanation for why it started, or why it later eased up. But I'm going to tell you what I believe was really happening. Because when you go through trauma and abuse, you start reaching for comfort anywhere you can find it, even if it's wrecking you. For me, it was stuff I'm not proud of: drinking, hookups, porn, getting high, chasing anything that made me feel less empty for 5 minutes. And I got pulled into friendships that were basically built on shared pain, like we were keeping each other afloat by drowning together. I started a lot of that in early teens, and it just snowballed until I hit about 16, and everything cracked wide open. That's when I got obsessed with tarot and spiritual stuff. I'd always been curious about it, even as a kid, but this was different. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It was like a hunger, a fixation. I started thinking I was getting messages, like a voice, or flashes in my mind, and I convinced myself it was something good, a guide, the universe, something light. And I'm not going to drag you through every detail, but I'll tell you this. That voice didn't lead me to healing. It led me to shame. It pushed me into lustful, degrading choices, things that made me feel like I was losing pieces of myself. And what really terrified me was how controlling it became. It would tell me what to do, and if I resisted, it would threaten me, like this pressure in my head, this fear that something awful would happen if I didn't obey. Meanwhile, I was also rambling to my friends about God being real, while I was completely out of my mind. That's the part that's so wild looking back. I even called my whole family to the house once and tried to convince them I had psychic abilities. And when they didn't agree, I yelled at them, like full-on arguing, crying, accusing them of not seeing the truth. I was deep in delusion. After the psych ward, life didn't magically get better. I came home and my dad treated me like I was fragile and dangerous at the same time. He literally watched me take my meds multiple times a day to make sure I didn't skip them. I'd lost my friends, no job. I'd stopped showing up to school a long time before. And I was alone with this torment, 24/7. Even sleep didn't feel like rest, because my mind wouldn't let me go. I was depressed, angry, exhausted, and I was suicidal. And then there was this moment, this one specific moment. I can still picture it like it's a photograph. So I said something like, "God, if you're real, please help me. I can't do this." And listen, I know how this sounds to some people, but what happened next felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced. It was like warmth and presence filled the room, like I wasn't alone anymore, like I was being held, safe, seen, loved, without having to earn it. I can't fully explain it, and I'm not trying to be dramatic. It just felt like a father wrapping his arms around a child who's been crying too long. After that, things started shifting. I got my first Bible, and this is where it gets hard to describe without sounding unbelievable. But I'm telling you what I lived. I would try to read, and my body would react. Like convulsions, my stomach tightening, my spine jolting. This burning anxiety-like feeling that would flare up and twist through me. It felt like something in me hated what I was doing. And slowly, I started believing that the core issue wasn't just chemical. I'm not saying mental illness isn't real. I'm saying in my case, I felt like there was something spiritual tangled up in it. Something dark that had gotten invited in through the stuff I was playing with. I remembered this verse. The sacrifices of pagans are offered to demons, not to God. And I do not want you to be participants with demons. So I made a choice that scared me. I stopped taking the medication. Not because I thought I was invincible. Honestly, I was terrified. But I felt this conviction in my chest like, this isn't the route. My family begged me not to. The psychiatrist wanted me back on a strict plan. But when I tried to schedule follow-ups, the appointment got canceled. She was out for personal reasons, and everything just stalled. My dad kept pushing. The pressure stayed heavy, and I had to cling to what I believed God was doing in me. And now, it's been almost a year since that whole nightmare. I'm not here pretending I'm perfect. I'm still healing. I still have things I'm working through. But the constant voice, it's gone. The crushing depression, it lifted. The suicidal thoughts that used to scream at me, they're not running my life anymore. Sometimes after I read scripture, my head feels so quiet, like actual peace. Not numbness, not sedation. Peace, the kind no pill ever gave me. And my life has changed in ways I honestly didn't think were possible back then. I've been holding down a job. I went back to school. I quit drugs, vaping, alcohol, porn. Things I used to cling to like life rafts. And for the first time in a long time, I actually feel like I have purpose. Because there was this void in me, This ache. And I tried to fill it with everything. Pleasure, attention, escape. spiritual power, anything. But nothing even comes close to what I felt in God's presence. That love, steady, holy, real, did something to me that I can't fake. When I look back now, I'm honestly stunned. Stunned by grace. By the fact that I was protected even when I wasn't looking for protection. Even when I didn't believe. Even when I was messing with things that harmed me. And I don't expect everyone to understand this. I really don't. But if you're still listening, thank you. I mean that. I hope nobody has to go through the kind of hell I went through to reach for God. I hope people can find Him before it gets that dark. But if you feel broken or ashamed or like you're too messed up to come to Him, please hear me. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. Because God didn't send His Son into the world to condemn it, but so the world could be saved through Him. So, I'm a first year in college now, but this happened a long time ago, back when I was in 7th grade. And I swear, it still sneaks into my thoughts when the house is quiet and I'm trying to fall asleep. It was this cold night in early December, maybe around 8:30. My mom, Marissa, my little brother Eli, my sister Paige, and I had just gotten back from the discount store in town. You know the kind. Bright lights, cheap snacks, random kitchen stuff you didn't plan on buying. We pulled into our driveway and started hauling bags out of the trunk. And just so you can picture it, our house was way out in the back roads, like really out there. Woods on both sides, long driveway that felt like it went on forever. The front yard sloped downhill, wide open, with only a couple trees scattered around like lonely silhouettes. Then on the far side, the forest got thick, dark and tangled. Paige and Eli ran inside first, leaving me and my mom outside to grab the last few bags. We were halfway to the porch when we heard it. Leaves crunching, slow and deliberate, like something was pacing or shifting its weight. We both froze at the exact same time and stared out into the yard. At first I thought, deer, because we saw deer all the time. And in the dark, with the porch light barely reaching, it kind of made sense. Something low to the ground, partly hidden behind one of the trees. But then it stepped backward into the light, and my stomach just dropped. It wasn't a deer. It was pale, like paper white, and it looked wrong. Naked skin, no fur, no color. Too thin, like stretched, like there wasn't enough of it to fit over the bones. It was down on all fours, but not like an animal, more like a person trying to imitate one. And the head, I still don't like thinking about the head. There wasn't a face, not really. It was smooth in a way that reminded me of a store mannequin, blank and featureless, like someone forgot to finish it. And its body had this awful, twisted shape. If you've ever seen those monster designs in shows, that kind of vibe, except this was right there in our yard, breathing real air. It turned its head toward us, like it knew we were there. Then it stood up. Not slowly, not cautiously, just up, rising onto its back legs like it was deciding it didn't need to pretend anymore. And it ran. It sprinted across the yard, crossed the driveway, and charged straight into the trees, still upright, still moving like something that didn't belong in the world we live in. It was so tall that when it hit the tree line, branches shook high up, like it brushed past the tops instead of the trunks. That part is what messes with me the most, because it makes no sense unless it was huge. My mom and I bolted inside like our bodies finally remembered how to move. We slammed the door, locked it, and just stood there in the entryway, breathing hard, staring at each other like we'd both stepped into the same nightmare. And I remember whispering, "You saw that, right?" And she didn't answer right away. She just looked at me and said, "Tell me what you think you saw." So I told her, everything. The pale skin, the blank head, the way it stood and ran. And she swallowed and said, "That's what I saw too." We checked the locks again. We didn't turn on extra lights or go peeking out the windows like people do in movies. We just went to bed. Because what else do you do when you've seen something you can't explain? The next morning, my mom went outside while it was bright, like daylight could make it less real. She walked to where it crossed the driveway, and that's when she found the tracks. My mom followed them for a little while, and then she stopped. She came back in looking pale and tight around the eyes, and she didn't want to talk about it anymore. After that, a few more things happened over the next week or so. Nothing as clear as seeing it in the yard, but enough to keep our nerves stretched thin. One night, we had the back sliding door open just for a minute, letting in cool air. Our dogs were right there, standing stiff as statues, low growls vibrating in their chests. My mom and I were trying to calm them down, and then we heard it. This sound, far away, but loud enough to raise the hair on my arms. It wasn't a regular animal noise. It was like a howl and a scream mashed together, like something crying out, but also warning you. We yanked the dogs inside so fast their nails scratched the floor, and we locked that door like it was the only thing holding the world together. And then, after that, it stopped. No more sounds, no more weird tracks. Eventually, we moved towns. Not because of that, just life stuff. But I've always wondered if it stayed out there, tucked into those woods like it belonged there all along. And I don't know what it was. I don't have a neat explanation. I just know what I saw, and I know my mom saw it too. And if there's one thing I'm sure of, it's that I hope I never, ever end up close enough to see it again. So, I want to tell you a few things that still sit with me in that strange place between grief and comfort. It started last summer, early July, I think. My cat Juniper got really sick out of nowhere. The moment I heard, I felt this heavy drop in my stomach, like my brain had already jumped ahead and decided how the story ended. I tried to shake it off, but it just kept growing, this dread that wouldn't let me pretend everything was fine. A couple days later, the vet told us it was cancer. Nothing dramatic, no big speech, just that calm, careful tone people use when they're trying not to break you in half. And we had to make the decision. The kind of decision you never feel ready to make, even when you know it's the kindest one. We did it at my mom's place because it felt calmer there. I remember holding Juniper in my arms while my mom's neighbor, she's worked with animals before, helped her go peacefully. And I know this sounds weird, but in the middle of all that pain, I felt this sudden wave of relief. Not happiness, not okay, just peace. Like the tension finally unclenched. And I swear it felt like Juniper relaxed too, like she wasn't fighting anymore. That night I went back to my dad's house and basically collapsed into bed. I was just staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, feeling hollow. Then, sometime around 10, maybe a little after, I felt something climb up onto the bed. I'm not exaggerating. I felt the mattress dip. I felt that familiar pressure settle against my shin, like a small animal curling up. Juniper used to do that exact thing. Hop up, circle once, then press in close like she was claiming her spot beside me. I didn't even move at first. I just froze, and my eyes filled up, because it felt so real. And instead of scaring me, it helped. It felt like a final little, "I'm still here," or maybe, "You're going to be okay." And I fell asleep. The next morning I told my dad and my brother. They're not really the paranormal type, more like, show me proof or it didn't happen. But even they went kind of quiet, like they didn't know what to do with it. Honestly, the rest of that day is blurry. I know I had a job interview later, and it felt surreal doing normal life things while my chest still felt cracked open. When I told a couple friends, they didn't hesitate. They were like, "That was Juniper. She came back to check on you." And I didn't argue. I just let myself hold that. The second thing happened a while earlier, fall of 2022, maybe September. My family had to put my dog down. His name was Milo. That night I was doom scrolling on my phone, just trying not to feel anything, when I got recommended this random religious channel video, and the topic was literally grief and loss. Like, specifically. It hit me so hard I just stared at it for a minute. Now, I can explain that one logically. Algorithms pick up on what you're watching, what you're searching, the mood you're stuck in. And I remember videos like that kept popping up for a couple weeks afterward, too. So I'm not saying it was a sign, but the timing was so on the nose that it still makes me pause. And the last story goes way back. Late 2011, after my grandmother died, we took in her dog, Rosie. We had her for about a year, maybe a bit more. Then in spring 2013, she got sick, and we found out there was a mass in her heart. Even if surgery worked, which wasn't guaranteed, she was already old and struggling, and it would have just been more suffering. Around that time, I started having these really vivid dreams. Not every night, but often enough that it felt like something was trying to process through my sleep. Rosie looks at me. Just a long look, like she's memorizing me. Then she turns and walks into the light. No rushing, no fear. And then the door closes and the dream ends. I don't remember exactly when I had that dream. It might have been weeks or even a couple months after she passed. And sure, it could just be grief doing what grief does, trying to create a goodbye you didn't get to fully feel in the moment. But something about it felt different. Like it wasn't only my brain, like it had its own calm gravity to it. And here's the thing that makes all of it even stranger to me. I've never really had anything like that with people in my family. And my family is huge, dozens and dozens of relatives. I've been to several funerals, and nothing unexplainable has happened. I've heard my aunts and uncles tell stories after certain losses, little coincidences, little moments that felt like messages. But me? Mostly nothing. Sometimes I get this sensation, though, like being watched, not in a scary way, more like being noticed. Like someone is just there, quietly, in the background. And that's it. I told my dad's partner about all this once, and she said something I've never forgotten. She told me maybe I'm just more tuned in, more aware of nature, of patterns, of tiny shifts most people brush off. And I don't know if that's true, but I do know this. When I was at my lowest, something, whether it was memory, love, grief, or something I can't explain, made the bed feel a little less empty. And sometimes, that's enough. So, this happened to me over a few years, kind of between 2020 and 2023, and even now I still remember it way too clearly, especially the dreams and the sleep paralysis. And just to say it up front, I wasn't taking any medication or anything like that. Also, English isn't my first language, so if my words sound a little off, that's why. But I'll tell it as honestly as I can. Let me give you the background first, because the house matters. Our home is old and kind of improvised. It wasn't drawn by an architect or built by an engineer. My grandparents put it together back when their little food business started doing well. This was decades ago, like around the 1950s. Later, the business fell apart because of bad handling, but the house stayed. There are several rooms in the house, and of course, I ended up sleeping in the weirdest one. My room has 2 doors, which already feels strange. And then there's this L-shaped counter inside the room with a small tap, like a mini sink area that doesn't really belong in a bedroom. My aunt, Maribel, once told me that room used to be a storage space for heavy things, like spare wheels and metal parts for trucks. Other relatives agreed like it was a normal fact, but to me, it always made the room feel unfinished, like it had another purpose before it became mine. Okay, now the story. Before all of this, I'd never had sleep paralysis. Not once. I didn't even really know what it felt like. Then, late in 2020, my aunt, Selena, died in that same room. I shared that bedroom with her for most of my life. She was much older than me, basically from another generation, and she'd been sick for a long time. Cancer. The room had 2 beds, both facing forward, and for years that was just our normal. 18 years of it. You get used to someone's breathing in the dark, you know? You get used to the little sounds of another person existing beside you. In September that year, she passed away. It was sudden. Her heart gave out. That night, I still don't know how to explain it without sounding dramatic, but I'll try. I was already in bed, half asleep, when I felt this coldness brush along my neck, like a thin ribbon of air. Not violent, almost gentle. And that's what made it worse, because it felt weirdly comforting and creepy at the same time. And then the dogs outside started howling. Not just one dog, several. Like they were answering each other, and then suddenly all the noise focused near our house, and then it stopped. Quiet again. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I remember thinking, that's new. But I was tired, and I convinced myself it was nothing. I drifted off. Then later, hours later, I woke up to commotion. My other aunt, Tessa, was shaking Selena, trying to wake her up. Not gently either, like she was refusing to believe what she was seeing. And that's when we realized she was gone. Seeing someone you've lived beside for years, lying there completely still, it does something to your brain. Her lips had turned dark, kind of purplish. I couldn't stop staring, and at the same time I didn't want to look at all. That image stayed in my head like it burned itself in. After that, the room didn't feel like a normal room anymore. Then, in 2021, the sleep paralysis started. It would happen at night, and the strangest detail is my cat, Miso, was always right beside me during those episodes. Like he knew. Like he was waiting for it. One night, I was sleeping in that room again, and I heard laughter. But then I started praying. And the longer I prayed, the louder it got. That part still chills me because it didn't feel random. It felt like something was reacting to me. The laughter grew sharper, uglier, like mockery, like the kind of laughing that wants you to feel small. I remember thinking, this sounds like something evil, and I hated that thought because I didn't want to be the kind of person who thinks like that. But I was terrified. This went on for months, episodes coming back again and again. Sometimes I'd wake up and I couldn't move at all. Not my fingers, not my legs, nothing. My body would feel pinned down, like a heavy weight pressing me into the mattress. And I'd go ice cold, like all the warmth in my body got drained out. But the worst part? I could see and hear everything. I could see the ceiling. I could hear the room. I could hear my own breathing, stuck and shallow. And the room looked normal. No shadow in the corner, no figure, nothing obvious. Just the feeling that something was there anyway. One night it was especially bad. I couldn't move, and it felt like it was taking longer than usual. Then I heard Miso. He started meowing, loud. Not normal feed me meowing. This was different. Sharp and urgent, like he was calling it something. Like he was trying to push through an invisible wall. I heard the bedroom door open. My aunt, Tessa, came in because she heard him too. She thought he was just being noisy. But Miso kept going. And that last meow, God, I swear it sounded like it cut through the whole air of the room. Like it snapped something. And suddenly I could move again. I sat up so fast, like my body had been released. I went straight to him, and the moment I was awake, he stopped. Instantly. like his job was done. He climbed onto me and started rubbing against me, my arm, my chest, my shoulder, marking me with his scent like he wanted to cover me in it. He wouldn't stop for a while. He was intense about it. And in my head, all I could think was he protecting me? Because after that night, the room felt heavy. That's the only word that fits. Heavy and wrong. Like you walk into it and your chest tightens a little without you noticing. I couldn't sleep properly there anymore. So I started sleeping in another room in the same house, beside my aunt again, because being alone in that room felt impossible. And even now, when I think back on it, I still wonder what exactly was happening to me, and why it started after she died in that bed. Hey, so my best friend, Mara, died late last year. She was 28, and I'm still trying to say that sentence without my throat doing that thing where it tightens up like it's bracing for impact. Mara had this intense relationship with death. Not in a dramatic, I'm so edgy way, more like it genuinely her, and she couldn't stop circling it. She'd bring up funeral plans the way some people bring up weekend plans. She told me what songs she'd want, what she'd wear, even what she didn't want people to say. And she used to joke, half joke, half not, that if she died first, she'd come back and haunt all of us. But she'd say it with this grin, like she was trying to soften it. Like, don't worry, I'll be a helpful ghost. I'll find your missing stuff. I'll do chores. I'll scare off weird men. I'll be the friendly haunting. That was very Mara, dark humor with this weird, protective tenderness underneath. So, here's the part I can't stop thinking about. A few weeks ago, I was in the kitchen and I heard this heavy slamming sound, like a cabinet door or a pantry door, something with weight. It happened again another night. Not a little creak, a slam. And then there was this moment with the bathroom that genuinely made my skin go cold. I remember walking past and seeing the bathroom light on. I remember the door being half open. And I watched the door swing shut like someone had pushed it. My partner was right there, so I was like, "Did you see that?" They opened the door again, and the light was off. Off. Like it had never been on in the first place. And yes, before you say it, I know memory is messy. I know lights get left on and off and your brain fills in gaps. I know all of that. But it didn't feel like a fuzzy maybe. It felt like a clear snapshot. Then there's the paint thing. I started painting again recently, which I hadn't done in a long time. One afternoon I was looking for this specific tube of paint, cadmium red, the exact one I like, not the cheap version. And I tore the room apart. I counted my tubes. I moved them all. I checked the drawers, the bag, the floor, under the desk, like I was searching for a contact lens. I was talking out loud to myself because I was so irritated, just muttering like, "Where are you? You have to be here. This is ridiculous." And then I sat down at my desk, kind of defeated, and I looked to my left, just a casual glance, and there it was, the tube, sitting in this open little space where I know it hadn't been before, because I had literally swept that exact area with my hand. Could it be me being scatterbrained? Sure, it could. Grief does weird things. Stress does weird things. But it felt like a tiny, pointed little, "Here, calm down." And then, this one is embarrassing to admit because it makes me sound like I'm sliding backwards. Mara and I used to smoke together, back when we were younger. I quit a while ago, like fully quit, and I'd been proud of it. But after the paint incident, I don't know, I started stepping outside at night again. Just standing there in the quiet with a cigarette, talking like she can hear me. It started as this thing where I felt stupid doing it, like, okay, I'm just talking to the air. But it turned into comfort, a routine, like I was sending my words somewhere. One night I put my cigarette out halfway through. I remember doing it carefully, snuffing it, checking it, making sure there was no glow, no smoke. Then I walked up the stairs, and halfway up I looked back down, and it was fully lit again, like it had never been touched. And yes, oxygen, wind, maybe I didn't put it out as well as I thought. I can explain that one away. I can. It's just weird. But the last thing is the one that won't settle. And then I felt it. A stiff, hard poke right at the back of my collar, through my leather jacket. Not like fabric shifting, not like a bug, not like my hair catching. It was a poke. Solid. Intentional. I felt it, and I heard it. This little tap sensation right where my neck meets the collar. I spun around so fast, my heart basically tripped over itself. My first thought was, someone threw a pebble at me. Then it was, someone touched me. I scanned everything. Walkway, shadows, cars, corners, everything. There was no one. No movement, no sound. Nothing that made sense. And then, later, when I was replaying it, I remembered something. Mara used to tell this story about us in school. She loved bringing it up. She'd say that one of her favorite things back then was that I sat behind her and I'd poke the back of her neck to get her attention. She'd imitate it too, this little flinch and laugh, and she'd be like, "You always did that. You just poke me like you were summoning me." I don't even remember doing it as clearly as she did, but she remembered. She said it more than once, like it mattered to her. So now I'm sitting with all of this, and I don't know what to do with it, because I'm not religious. I'm a skeptic. I'm the person who rolls my eyes at half the stuff people swear is paranormal. And I wasn't hunting for signs. I wasn't begging the universe to show me she's still here. But at the same time, I did start talking to her. And I can't pretend I didn't want something back, even if I told myself I was just venting into the night. And the other part is, it doesn't feel sweet. Not always. Sometimes when I think about these things, I get this heavy, wrong feeling, like my body is reacting before my brain decides what it believes. And then I spiral, because I've heard all those stories, you know? About grief attracting the wrong kind of attention, about things that aren't your person pretending to be. I don't even know if I believe that, but the idea wedges itself in anyway when you're already raw. And there's one more layer that makes me feel kind of crazy. There have been a few moments where I had this gut sense something was going to happen right before it did. Not like a dramatic vision, more like a quiet certainty that showed up, uninvited. And then it happened. And I don't know what to call that. Intuition? Pattern brain? Grief brain trying to create order? I don't know. I just keep thinking about Mara joking, "I'll haunt you, but I'll be helpful." And then I think about the slams and the paint and that poke at my collar like a hand reaching through a locked door. And I'm left with this question I can't answer. Is it her? Or is it just my mind trying to survive her absence? Either way, it feels real when it happens, and I don't know what to do with the feeling it leaves behind. Okay, so you have to promise you'll hear me out, because I know how this sounds. I live in this really old high-rise, like ancient old. It's over a century old, and it used to be a hotel back in the day. The kind of place where you just feel the history the second you walk into the lobby, you know? When I first moved in, I had my cat. Her name was Miso, and she started doing this thing that I couldn't explain. I'd leave to run errands, grab groceries, whatever, and when I came back, she'd be posted up in the living room staring at the same spots like she was watching a person standing there. And not just a casual glance, no. This was intense, like locked in. And I'd walk through the door, and she'd flick her eyes over to me like, "You seeing this?" And she'd make this sound, this low, angry little rah, then snap her stare right back to the exact same place. Then she'd look at me again, rah, and back again. Like she was trying to translate something for me and getting frustrated that I didn't speak the language. At first, I tried to laugh it off. Cats are weird. I told myself that 100 times. But deep down, I knew. I just knew she was seeing something. And then, it didn't take long for whatever it was to make sure I knew too. It started small, kind of, but not really. One day I'm in the hallway, not even near the kitchen, and I hear this sudden crash that's so loud my stomach dropped. I ran in, and a glass had flown off the counter and shattered like someone had swiped it with a hand. And the thing is, nothing was unsteady. No vibration, no wind, nothing. It didn't fall. It got thrown. After that, it escalated. Lights would do this insane thing where they'd flare up so bright it looked like a stadium spotlight turned on in my living room. My lamps, the overhead lights, everything. Just blazing for a second, then snapping back to normal like nothing happened. Like something was showing off. Like, hi, I can do this. And then, the voices started. Not like a whisper right in my ear, more like people talking to each other in another room. Like two strangers having a conversation as if I wasn't even there. I'd freeze and try to listen, and it would feel so real I'd start checking my phone to see if I left the TV on. But the TV would be off. The hallway would be empty. The apartment would be quiet. Except for them. Then I started seeing shapes. Not all the time, but enough that I couldn't pretend anymore. Figures, kind of half-formed. Sometimes I'd see a face out of the corner of my eye, like someone leaning around a doorway. Sometimes it would be like a body without legs, like the bottom half just wasn't there. And I know that sounds impossible, but it's exactly why it messed with me so badly. Because my brain couldn't make it make sense. And then it got physical. I don't mean like a chill down your spine. I mean I was touched, like an actual hand, on my arm, on my shoulder, more than once. And one time, I swear on everything, I felt breath blow right across my face hard enough to move my hair, like I had leaned into a giant fan. I remember flinching so hard my neck hurt afterward. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was what happened when I slept. I was asleep, and suddenly I was ripped awake, and I literally went flying off the bed. Not rolling, not stumbling, flying. I went across the room, landed on my hands and knees, and my head hit the floor so hard I saw stars. I remember sitting there shaking, touching the side of my head, and it was swelling up instantly, this huge lump. My knees were scraped raw like road rash. I was so scared after that I begged a friend, Tara, to stay the night. I told her, I just need someone here while I sleep, please. And that night, she saw it. She told me the next morning with this pale face like she hadn't slept at all. She said she saw my body jerking while I was asleep, like something was tugging on me. Then she watched me get thrown off the bed. She kept saying, I don't know what I saw, but I saw it. And I'm telling you, that broke something open in me. Because it wasn't just my fear anymore. It wasn't just me. I had proof. Another person witnessed it. After that, I stopped trying to be polite about it. I started fighting back the only way I knew how. I saged the apartment, more than once. I opened windows. I prayed out loud. I demanded, firmly, that whatever was there was not welcome, not invited, and it had to leave. I said it over and over, daily, sometimes multiple times a day. I kept telling myself, I walk with God. I am protected. Even when I didn't feel brave, I said it anyway, because I needed something stronger than fear. And it didn't leave right away. It stayed for a long time. Not weeks, not a couple months, almost a year, more actually. It was like it wanted to wear me down, like it was waiting for me to stop resisting. But eventually, it faded. The air changed. The apartment felt like mine again. Miso stopped staring into corners like she was tracking a person pacing back and forth. The lights behaved. The crashes stopped. The whole place finally went still. I thought it was over. And then, this part still makes me sick. Someone new moved into the building. Not someone I knew, just a new tenant. A few days later, I'm down by the snack machines with Tara, and we hear this guy talking to someone. Casual, like he's complaining about the weather. And he goes, "I keep getting jerked awake and thrown to the floor from my sleep." I felt my whole body go cold. I nudged Tara so hard I nearly elbowed her. My mouth was hanging open, my eyes probably the size of dinner plates, and Tara was staring at me with the exact same face like, "No, no way." And she mouthed, "Oh my God." Just like that. No sound, just the words. Because we both knew. It didn't disappear. It just moved. And if you're wondering why I stayed, why I didn't run the first time my cat did that angry little rah, it's because real life isn't always simple. I'm in my 50s, living on a fixed income, and I don't have a big support system. I couldn't just pack up and go. If I could have, I'm telling you, I would have been gone at the first sign. But that's why I'm so certain. Not 90%, not maybe. I am completely, undeniably convinced there's something paranormal in this world. I lived it. I felt it. And I had someone else see it too. And I'm just grateful, so grateful, that it finally let me go. So, I don't even know how to explain this without sounding dramatic, but I swear, there was a stretch of time where my bedroom just felt off. Like, you know that feeling when you're alone, but your body doesn't believe you're alone? That. It wasn't loud or obvious at first, just this weird pressure in the air, like the room had a mood. At the beginning, I brushed it off. I told myself I was tired, stressed, overthinking, whatever. But deep down, I had this tiny suspicion I didn't really want to name, because once you name it, it feels real. Then one night, out of nowhere, I started hearing these sounds that didn't match anything normal in the house. I'm the kind of person who notices little noises, pipes, wind, the usual stuff. But these were different. They had this intent to them. And then it got worse, because I heard scratching, like nails dragging along the wall right beside my bed. Slow, deliberate, right there. I didn't sleep at all, not even a little. My whole body stayed in that fight or flight state, like my nervous system was standing guard. Every time I tried to relax, I'd feel that prickly, something's wrong sensation crawl back up my spine. The next day, I told my parents. Well, my mom first. Her name's Marisol, and she basically laughed it off in that gentle way parents do when they think you're spiraling. My stepdad, Dario, just shook his head and told me I was probably dreaming half of it. Like, sure, okay, except it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like my room had turned into a place I couldn't fully control anymore. So I started praying at night. Not in a panic, just like setting boundaries. Like, hey, this is my space. I'd sit on the edge of the bed, whisper prayers, try to calm myself down. And during the day, I'd feel fine, mostly. But at night, my intuition kept insisting there was still something there, waiting for the lights to go out. One night, I did what I always do. I lay down, got comfortable, and said the Lord's Prayer quietly to myself. I remember thinking, okay, tonight's going to be normal. It has to be. And then, the noises started again. Instantly, my body went rigid, like I'd been trained for it. My chest tightened, my muscles locked. My brain went into this high-pressure mode where you're trying to listen to everything at once. And then it happened. This heavy feeling, like someone dropped weight onto my body. Not a blanket heavy, not sleep heavy, like presence heavy. Like something had climbed up and settled right on top of me. I couldn't move. I couldn't fully breathe right. And in that moment, I just knew, not guessed, not wondered. I knew something was taking from me, like it was feeding on whatever energy I had left. When morning came, I felt wrecked. Not, I slept badly, tired. More like I'd run for miles in my sleep. My body felt drained, like my battery had been left open all night. And then, this part still freaks me out when I think about it. My necklace snapped later that day. A necklace I wore constantly. It didn't get caught on anything. It didn't tug. It just broke, right in my hands. And I remember staring at it like, oh, so this isn't just in my head. That's when I decided to do something more traditional, something my aunt used to talk about, an egg cleansing. I know some people think it's superstition, but at that point, I didn't care. I needed something that felt like protection, like clearing, like reclaiming my space. I did it carefully, quietly, trying to be respectful about it. But at night, I still catch that feeling sometimes. Not as intense, not as terrifying, but like something is lingering around the edges, hoping I'll slip back into fear. And here's the thing, I'm not sitting here shaking in terror. I'm not. It's more like they're annoying, like an unwanted visitor who doesn't understand boundaries. They don't leave you alone easily, and maybe that's the whole point. I'm sharing this because I know I'm not the only one. There are so many people who felt something unexplainable, something that doesn't fit neatly into logic or coincidence. And I don't need everyone to believe me. I just wanted to say, this happened to me, and I know what I felt. So, when I was in high school, I had this beat-up upright piano in our garage. It was one of those old ones that never stayed in tune, but I loved it anyway. I'd come home from school, drop my bag, and just disappear into the garage for hours, playing until my fingers felt sore in that good way. One afternoon, the weather was weirdly perfect. Warm, calm, bright. So I had the garage door open. I remember I was working through some Debussy, just getting into that floaty, quiet headspace where everything else sort of fades out. And then, this happened so fast I still don't know how to explain it without sounding ridiculous. A brown, dead leaf-colored thing, that's honestly the closest description I've got, shot straight up from behind the piano, like it launched, and it made this sharp, unmistakable hissing sound. Not like a soft rustle, not like air moving, a hiss. My whole body reacted before my brain did. I threw my hands up, leaned back hard, and froze, like I was bracing for it to hit my face. I could barely hear anything else. And then, it was just gone. I stayed like that, hands still up, shoulders tense, for what felt like forever. If I had to guess, maybe 45 seconds? A full minute? I remember thinking, okay, don't move, don't look away. If it comes back, and then I finally bolted out into the alley behind our garage. Here's the part that makes me feel extra insane. Where I was sitting, I could see basically the whole garage and all the exits. The garage was empty, no car parked inside, no stacked boxes, no cluttered corners to hide in. My back was against the side wall, so I was facing outward, looking into the space. It's a simple square garage, no weird storage loft, no little nook behind shelving. So I have no idea where it came from or where it went. I stood in the alley for a minute, breathing like I'd just sprinted, still in shock. Then, when my nerves calmed down enough that curiosity started wrestling with fear, I walked back in, slowly, and searched everywhere. Under the piano, behind it, around every side. I even got down on my knees and checked the floor like I was looking for a dropped contact lens. Nothing. And the thing is, because it looked so much like a dead leaf, I actually tried to convince myself that's all it was. Like maybe a leaf blew in and caught air somehow. But there was no wind. The air was completely still. And it hadn't been leaf season or anything. There weren't even dead leaves scattered around nearby. Plus, leaves don't hiss. They just don't. A few minutes later, my dad pulled into the alley coming home from work. I was still shaky, and when he got out of the car, I walked right up to him and told him what happened. And I started crying, which embarrassed me even as it was happening. I wasn't trying to be dramatic. I was just genuinely terrified and confused. My sister Mara was there too, and they both kind of laughed it off. Like, not in a mean way, more like, "What are you talking about?" They didn't believe me. My younger brothers were little, and either don't remember or never really took it seriously. But my mom said she believed me. She didn't pretend to know what it was, but she looked at me like, "I know you're not making this up." I tried researching it later because what else do you do when something impossible happens? But nothing matched. This was in a Midwest city, and most of the creature stuff online either sounds like folklore from somewhere totally different, or it's so vague it could be anything. And here's the part that messes with me a little. About 3 weeks after I saw it, my grandpa passed away. He was really old, and it wasn't sudden, so I don't genuinely think it was connected. But it still planted this weird seed in my head. Like the timing made everything feel heavier. And honestly, that stretch afterward was rough. Just bad luck stacked on bad luck. I even got clipped by a car a couple months later, not horribly, but enough to leave me rattled and bruised, and wondering if the universe had quietly put a target on my back. I've been in that garage plenty of times since then. I've played music out there again. I've stood in the exact same spot and tried to recreate the moment. Like if I stare long enough, maybe my brain will finally solve it. But I never saw it again. So I don't know. Maybe it was something completely normal that my mind turned into a monster because I was alone and caught off guard. Or maybe it really was something I can't explain. All I know is, a dead leaf-colored thing shot up behind my piano, hissed at me, and vanished. And I still think about it more often than I'd like to admit. So, I've had a pretty wild life, honestly. And there's this one weird thing that's followed me for, God, close to a decade now. It's changed shapes over the years, but it's been consistent. Like a roommate that never pays rent and never shows its face. It started out simple, if you can even call it simple. I'd be lying in bed and feel my mattress breathing under me, like the whole thing had lungs. And then there were nights where I'd feel someone sit on the edge of the bed, clear as day, except when I'd look, there was nobody there. Sometimes it felt like the bed got smacked, like a hand hitting it. The whole thing would shudder. And the creepiest part? It didn't matter where I slept. Different apartments, different houses, different beds. I even tried a hammock once. Thought maybe it was the mattress, or the frame, or, I don't know, something explainable. But in the hammock it turned into this poking feeling, like someone tapping the air right into my body. I got so fed up that I slept on the floor for years. Years. I figured, all right, you want to mess with my bed? Fine, no bed. And at first I'd bolt upright and run, like full panic, heart hammering, lights on, checking corners like that would help. But over time, it stopped being scary. Not because it got nicer, just because I got tired. You know how you can get used to almost anything when it keeps happening long enough? Still, there were phases where it got more intense. Like when it started feeling like someone was sitting on my legs, not heavy exactly, but enough to pin me in place. And then it would tap my legs up and down, like it was drumming on me. Sometimes I'd feel it under my arms, or like something shifting under the pillow, like a presence trying to get comfortable right next to my head. Most nights, it's just this steady, annoying thing. It feels like invisible hands pressing down on the bed beside me, over and over, gently lifting and lowering the mattress like it's kneading dough. All night. Long enough that I just learned to ignore it the way you ignore a neighbor's loud TV. And then it'll disappear for months, like it forgets I exist. But when life gets rough, when I'm stressed or sick or worn down, it comes back stronger, like it can smell weakness. There were a few nights where it felt like it was powerful enough to shove me, like actually push my body. For a while, I even had this sharp feeling that it wanted to push me away from my partner at the time, like it was trying to wedge itself between us. Her name was Tessa. She left about 5 months ago, so now I live alone. Which brings me to last night. Last night was different, completely. I was lying there with one arm stretched out, half asleep, not even thinking, and I felt a hand take mine. Not grabbing, not pulling, just holding. Like fingers lacing lightly, like someone careful. And then this slow, gentle squeeze, exactly the way someone does when they really care about you and they don't need to prove anything. And the energy, yeah, I'm going to call it energy because I don't have a better word, was so different. Warm, soft, almost affectionate. Like it wasn't there to annoy me or mess with me. It felt like it knew me, like it was familiar with me in this deeply personal way, and it was trying to comfort me. But last night, none of that. It was gentle the whole time. I felt the weight move slowly along my forearm, like a calming massage. And the best comparison I can give you is, you know that feeling when you hold a strong magnet near something and there's that push-pull pressure? That invisible force you can feel? It was like that. Like a magnetic massage, like something was shaping the air around my body. Then it drifted down to my leg, moving upward gradually, slow, deliberate, almost curious. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it paused right at my crotch, and I swear I had this moment of, nope, absolutely not. What is happening right now? Because when physical boundaries aren't really a boundary, suddenly the list of possibilities gets way longer, and your brain starts scrambling to catch up. It didn't go all the way. Which, yeah, I'm human. I'm gonna admit I was kind of annoyed about that, because the sensation was honestly nice. But it started fading, getting weaker, like whatever strength it had was running out. Except the hand-holding didn't stop. That part stayed steady, gentle squeezes, like reassurance. Like, it's okay, I'm here. And I just passed out, completely. Like my body finally believed it was safe. Now I'm awake and I keep replaying it, trying to make sense of it. Like, did my sleep ghost decide to be romantic? What even is that? It felt so loving, so kind, so intimately calm. Like it wasn't some random thing wandering through my room. It felt personal. And maybe this is relevant, maybe it isn't, but I'll tell you anyway. Since Tessa left, I've been kind of messy. I've been seeing a few people. One of them is this very witchy, spiritual type. Actually, more than one if I'm being honest. And part of me wonders if I invited something in without realizing it. Or if I've been around enough people who believe in certain things that, I don't know, something noticed me. But yeah, that was last night. And I don't know whether to feel comforted, confused, or deeply weirded out. Mostly I just can't stop thinking about how gentle it was. Hey friends of the Paranormal M channel, it's that time again, one of my favorite parts of the day, sitting down with you and sharing paranormal experiences from all around the world. It genuinely makes me happy every single day. So don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. And by the way, thank you so much for sending in your paranormal stories. Please keep them coming. Alright, let's get started. So, this happened about a decade ago, and I still don't really have a neat explanation for it. Back then, my girlfriend, let's call her Marissa, was living in a pretty new apartment complex down in Southern California. Modern place, clean halls, fresh paint, the kind of building that shouldn't come with ghost stories. She had a roommate, Drew, who worked nights, so I barely ever crossed paths with him. For the first few months, everything was totally normal. Quiet, uneventful. Then one night, really early, like around 3:30 in the morning, Marissa hears this scream from his room. Not like a startled yelp. She described it as the kind of scream that makes your stomach drop because your brain instantly goes, "That's terror." And then Drew comes flying into her room like he's being chased. At first she's furious, like, "What are you doing barging in here?" But that anger lasts maybe 2 seconds because she sees his face. He's pale, shaking, breathing like he ran a mile, just completely wrecked. Once he can talk, he tells her he got home around 1:30 or 2, same as always. He said he sat in his room, smoked a little, had a couple beers, left the lights on, and passed out. And then he wakes up, because his lights are strobing, flicking on and off like crazy. And while he's trying to figure out what's happening, things start moving. Like, moving. Stuff sliding off the dresser, something clattering from the desk, his chair shifting like it got kicked. He swore it felt like the whole room had turned hostile in the span of seconds. He didn't say he saw a figure, no shadow person, no face in the corner, just chaos. Like whatever it was didn't need to show itself. It could just make the room explode. And that's when he ran. After a while, Marissa talks him down enough that he'll go back to his room, but only if she comes with him. So they walk in together and, yeah, his room is a mess. Drawer half open, stuff on the floor, like someone stormed through it. Later, Marissa told me she couldn't decide if Drew exaggerated or panicked or made up part of it. But she was sure about one thing. He was genuinely terrified. You can tell when fear is real. It sits in someone's eyes. It changes their voice. He moved out within a few days. And honestly, that should have been the end of it, right? Except it wasn't. Marissa got a new roommate about a month later, Talia this time. Things smoothed out again. A few quiet months, almost like the apartment had reset. But then Marissa started telling me she felt watched. Like the feeling didn't go away even when she was alone in the middle of the day. At first she tried to laugh it off, like, "I'm just spooked because of Drew." But then she got more serious. She told me, very calmly at first, that she thought something was in the apartment. Something wrong. She was religious. I'm not. But I went along with whatever she wanted to do. Prayer, blessings, all of it. Because I cared about her, and because you don't dismiss someone you love when they're scared. The weird part is, I never felt anything. And I was there a lot. 4 or 5 nights a week sometimes. I never saw objects move, never heard voices, nothing like that. Until one afternoon I showed up and she was sitting on the couch, like someone had turned the volume down on her soul. She was usually bright, talkative, goofy, always doing something. But that day she was just still. Eyes open, staring past the TV like she wasn't really in the room. I said her name a couple times. Nothing. It took a while before she blinked like she'd come back. And then she just started crying. Like ugly, shaking, helpless crying. Not brushed her shoulder. Not startled her from behind. Through. She kept saying, "It walked through me." like repeating it was the only way to make it real enough that I'd understand. I tried to be logical. I tried to soothe her, but you could tell she wasn't working from imagination. She was working from memory, from something she felt in her bones. It took hours before she was herself again. And after that, little things started happening. Nothing dramatic at first. Objects not where they should be. Keys turning up in weird places. The remote vanishing and reappearing in the pantry. Stuff that sounds like absent-mindedness. Except it happened so often she stopped even being surprised. She'd just sigh and say, "It's doing it again." Then came the day that finally broke her. It was a Saturday afternoon, and she'd just gotten home from a long ride. She drops her gear, turns the shower on, undresses, steps under the water, and she hears a knock. Not loud, just a polite little knock on the bathroom door. She assumes it's Talia needing to use the bathroom, so she calls out, "I'm in the shower." No response. A minute later, the knocking happens again. Same thing. "I'm in the shower." Still nothing. Then it comes a third time, harder, more impatient. Now she's annoyed, so she shuts off the water, wraps a towel around herself, and yanks the door open, ready to snap at her roommate. And there's no one there. The apartment is quiet. She even calls out like, "Seriously, knock it off," still thinking someone is messing with her. Then she realizes something. The front door still has the chain on, and she's on the second floor. No balcony access, no quick exit. If someone was inside, they'd still be inside. So she tries to calm herself down, tells herself the knocking must have come from a neighbor's unit. Thin walls, weird echo, whatever. She turns the shower back on, gets back under the water. And then the knocking starts again. Only now she's not irritated. She's scared. Because it's closer, more precise. And then, like something got fed up with being ignored, the bathroom door gets pounded on. Not a casual knock, not a neighbor, not pipes, not building noises. A heavy, deliberate pounding, right there, inches away, like whatever it was wanted her attention and didn't care how it got it. Marissa froze. She told me she couldn't even breathe right for a second. Just stood there under the water, staring at the door, towelless and vulnerable, and realizing, it's here. It knows I'm here. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She just waited until she could move again, shut off the shower, dried off as fast as she could, and got out of there. She came to my place and stayed for a few nights. And not long after that, she moved out completely. No dramatic final confrontation. No closure. Just leaving. And the part that still sticks with me is how ordinary the building was. Not some creaky Victorian house with a tragic history, just a newer apartment complex with shared walls and neighbors on every side. So why that unit? Why her? Why there? I don't know. I honestly don't. But I know this. Once she moved, it stopped. Whatever it was, whether it was something paranormal or something we can't name, it didn't follow her. And even now, years later, I can still hear the way she described that pounding. Like the sound wasn't just on the door, it was in her life, demanding to be noticed. Hey, so I've got to tell you about my house, because it's one of those places that feels like it has a heartbeat of its own, and not always in a good way. Ever since I was little, people have said it has this off energy. Like the second you step inside, it's not exactly scary, it's just heavy. My Aunt Maribel used to joke that the house sits on something, and over the years we've had all kinds of people come through to bless it. Priests, a spiritual counselor my mom found, even this older guy named Father Tomas, who walked around quietly like he was listening to the walls. And the weirdest part is, almost everyone who spends time here ends up saying something similar. They hear things, see things. Not all the time, not even consistently, just enough to make you question yourself. But my room? My room is the epicenter. Friends who've slept over have told me they heard a baby crying, like way down the hall, even when nobody else was awake. My cousin Javi swore he heard a music box playing, soft, tinkly, like it was coming from inside the closet. And I've had that thing happen where you catch movement out of the corner of your eye, like a shadow slipping in or out of the doorway. Except when you look, there's nothing there. It always feels like different stuff, too. Like, whatever's passing through doesn't always feel like the same presence. That's why my family started wondering if the place is some kind of crossroads. My mom calls it a thin spot. My dad says it's like the house has a door that doesn't fully close. And then there's this one corner of my room. I can't even explain it properly without getting chills. It's just wrong. The air feels colder there, but not like temperature cold, more like emotion cold, like if dread had a scent. A few months back, I had sleep paralysis for the first time in my life. I woke up and couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even turn my head all the way. And I remember my eyes locking onto that corner. There was something there. It was tall, too tall, and it looked like it was made of scribbles, like someone had sketched a person with frantic, jagged lines. But the face was clear, almost cartoon clear. A wide smile, way too deliberate, like it knew I could see it. And it just stood there like it was posing. 2 days later, I was sitting with my dad, Elias, in the kitchen. We were talking about the weird things in the house, like casual, which is insane, but that's just how it is here. And I still hadn't told him what I saw, because honestly, I didn't want to make it real by saying it out loud. And then he goes, really calmly, "I've seen something around the outside of the house, and I've seen it in your closet." My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my whole body went cold. I asked him what it looked like, and he described it. This tall, messy-looking figure, like it wasn't fully solid, but the face was smiling, like it was proud of itself. It was the same thing. And that's when it stopped being, maybe I imagined it, and turned into, okay, something is actually happening. Now here's another layer. About a year ago, we got my mom a cat. His name is Pesto, and he's this sweet little menace, curious, clingy, always trying to be where he isn't supposed to be. And for some reason, he is obsessed with my room. I've tried shutting him out. I've tried keeping the door closed. Somehow, every single time, he ends up in here like it's his job. And every time he comes in, he goes straight to that corner. I know people say cats do weird things, and I really try to tell myself it's nothing. But when it's the same corner, every time, and the energy already feels awful there, it's hard to shrug it off. We've tried so much. We've burned herbs. We've had blessings done more than once. We've moved furniture around. We've opened windows and tried to air out the heaviness like it's just stale air. One priest, Father Tomas, the quiet one, walked into my room, stood there for a long time, and then told my parents something that made my mom cry. He said I should sleep somewhere else. Like, not maybe try switching rooms, but like, move me out of that room. And there's this whole history too, which doesn't help. Before my parents lived here, my uncle and one of my dad's old friends used to stay in the house. Their names were Renzo and Cal, and apparently they got into this phase where they were messing with rituals, trying to summon something, trying to get answers, trying to gain knowledge, the kind of thing people laugh about until it isn't funny anymore. They swear it didn't work, but the house has always had stories around it, and after they did that stuff, everything seemed to get louder. Like they didn't open a door on purpose, but they loosened the latch. And then there are the poltergeist type things my parents talk about. Doors swinging open by themselves, then slamming shut. Things getting knocked off shelves when nobody's near them. And this one month, my mom still swears she wasn't imagining it. These little statues we keep on a shelf would be in different positions. Not just moved, but rotated, switched around, like someone had come in and rearranged them while you weren't looking. And it wasn't a one-time thing. It happened again and again, just long enough to make you feel completely powerless. And then it stopped, like whatever was doing it got bored. The house is old, over 100 years, and the land has a long history. Most of what I've heard comes from older relatives, so I'm not pretending every story is 100% reliable. But I can tell you what I felt. And what I felt is this: the house carries sadness that doesn't belong to us. My family is close. We're not fighting all the time. There's love here. But when I walk in, it's like the walls exhale something heavy into the air. Like the place doesn't want to be bright. And I can handle the occasional weird moment, honestly. If things pass through and don't bother anyone, fine. But that corner, whatever is tied to that corner, feels different. It feels like it lingers, like it's not just passing by. And I don't want to live with that. I just want to know if there's a way to actually clear it out for good. Not just mask it for a week. Not just chase it into the next room. I want the house to feel like ours again. Like when you shut the door at night, you're actually alone. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this the way I tell a friend sitting at my kitchen table, because that's honestly what it feels like I need right now. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just confused. And a little... So, we live up in Alaska, and people forget there's a whole layer of local folklore here that doesn't match what you hear in the lower 48. Things have names up here. Stories have weight. And I need to say this up front too. People assume things about me because of a genetic condition I have, like that means I'm into this stuff. I'm not. I didn't ask for any of this. I just moved into a house and started noticing things that don't add up. The house itself isn't ancient, built in the late 80s, but the land is. It was part of an original homestead in the area, one of those places that's been passed around in pieces over time. There have been a handful of owners. From what I've gathered, the earlier families really loved it here. Then the most recent owners, they were bad news. Neighbors say they barely ever saw them, and they never saw the kids. And that's the part that still makes my stomach turn. There's a room. It has a lock on the outside. Not a normal privacy lock, an actual lock. Inside, the walls are damaged, and there are marks across the door like something clawed at it, again and again. I'm not going to get graphic, but it's obvious that room held a lot of suffering. I later heard the state removed children from the home because of neglect, and after that, the house went into foreclosure. When you walk into this house, the feeling is strangely light, like bright air, even when it's dim outside. But that one room, it's different. It's heavy, like the air gets packed down, suffocating, like you're breathing through a blanket. At first, we didn't even really use it. We kept storage in there while we got settled. The door stayed shut, almost sealed up, just because it felt easier not to deal with it. But then we finally cleared things out and started setting it up as an actual room. And that's when everything sped up. The first thing was the TV. It started coming on late at night, blaring, like loud. Not the normal TV glitch loud. The volume would be cranked way up. Other times I'd be watching something and it would just click off. We're not talking about power flickers. My husband Eli works in the trades. He checked everything electrical. The wiring is fine. We're also not right on top of neighbors or anything. The closest window from another house is an acre away. This isn't someone messing with us. And it sounds ridiculous to say, but it started to feel like it was aimed at me, especially when my dogs weren't in the room. If I'm alone in there, my cats act weird, clingy, intense, like they're guarding me. They'll climb on me and stare past my shoulder. They refuse to relax. The dogs will pace and keep looking at the doorway like they heard something I didn't. One night, I let the dogs out, and the second I stepped away, a bunch of items started rattling, like someone grabbed the furniture and shook it. I turned around and I watched a lamp slide. Not fall, move. I froze. I tried to explain it away in my head, like maybe the floor shifted or something, but there wasn't any reason for it. And then, this is the one that still makes my skin crawl. While I was sitting on the couch, I felt something touch me through the back cushion. The couch is hard-backed. There's no "someone bumped it" explanation. It was like fingers pressing, just for a second. Not gentle, not playful. Like testing whether I could feel it. My dad, Tom, was visiting. He's older, moves slow, and I literally called out, "Did you shut that?" Because I needed it to be anyone but what I was thinking. He wasn't even near the hallway. He was nowhere close. A few days later, I accidentally left that room's door open. That night, my breathing machine in the bedroom turned on by itself. It's not a simple switch. It takes multiple steps, buttons, clicks, a specific sequence. It just powered up and started running. That was the first time Eli experienced something directly, and I could see in his face the exact moment he stopped humoring me. Then there was the night that I can't stop replaying. I woke up at a weird hour, the kind of waking where your body says, "Something is watching you." I opened my eyes and there was a figure in the room. Not tall, not tiny either, maybe a bit over 5 feet. The TV was on, and the screen wasn't showing anything, just that dark, glossy frame. But the darkness looked wrong, like it swallowed the light instead of reflecting it. And it was staring at me. The eyes were... I don't even know how to describe them without sounding dramatic. The roundest, reddest eyes I've ever seen. Not glowing like a cartoon, just red, solid, unblinking, fixed on me like it had all the time in the world. I didn't get a good feeling. Not fear like, "Boo, ghost," more like wrongness. Like when an animal locks onto you and you realize you're being assessed. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I covered my eyes and stayed still. I counted in my head. I waited, maybe 10 minutes. When I looked again, it was gone. And the feeling I had was this. It wasn't there to attack me. It was there to watch. And it didn't expect me to wake up. After that, I started keeping the door shut almost all the time. Recently, our whole household got knocked out by the flu, so we were stuck inside more than usual. We ended up in that part of the house a lot, and at one point we read scripture out loud. Not aggressively, not like some big ritual, just trying to bring some calm into the space. Things did quiet down a little for a bit, but then something else happened that I can't make sense of. There's an upper deck door. I went to let the dogs out. When I grabbed the handle, it started making this sizzling sound, loud, like something electrical arcing or like water hitting a hot pan. Except the handle wasn't hot. I checked it over and over. No heat. Nothing. The other side of the door was facing outside where it was about -3 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's not like we had some warm draft or condensation situation. I opened and closed the door a few times, and it kept sizzling every time I touched the handle. Finally it stopped, and I let the dogs out. Later, no sound. which is weird because that door seal is loud. My biggest dog walked back in, just appeared inside like the door had opened. She stood there with her head low, staring around, confused, sniffing, circling, like she was trying to find the source of something. Then she turned and went back out. I know I latched that door. I told Eli to shut it, and then I tried to shove it open, like I was hunting for a loose latch or some flaw. It wouldn't budge. Solid. The next day, my dad walked in while I was sick and, without thinking, made the sign of the cross. Just a reflex, like older folks do. Within minutes, there was banging. Not subtle, not old house settling. Loud, aggressive hits that made my chest tighten. And since then, the noises have only gotten louder. I've lived in older homes than this. I know creaks. I know pipes. I know winter expansion. This isn't that. And I'm at this point where I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what it is. I don't want to slap a label on it, because up here, labels matter, and I don't want to invite something worse by naming it wrong. But I also can't ignore the feeling I got from whatever was standing there watching me. I need you to know this too. I don't have a history of hallucinations. No sleep paralysis. No episodes like that. I'm not someone who sees things. I don't even like scary movies. We've done some recordings and we caught noises, sounds that don't feel human. But the creepy part is, we didn't hear them in the moment, only on the playback. So that's where we're at. A house that feels bright, except for one room. Activity that got worse the moment we opened that room up. And a presence that seems to notice when I'm alone. And I'm just trying to figure out what to do before it escalates into something we can't take back. So, this is something I wrote down for myself because I started feeling like I was losing my grip on what was real and what wasn't. It was a place my wife and I rented a few years back, about 4, maybe 5 years ago now. And at the time, I kept a running note of everything that happened, mostly in order because it was just too much to hold in my head. Right from the start, the house had these smells that made no sense. Like we'd have all the windows open, the place would be fully ventilated, and still, out of nowhere, you'd get this heavy, rotting food smell in the bedrooms. Not faint, not maybe the trash. It was there. And then other days it was the opposite, this scorched floral smell, like someone burned dried flowers or incense, but it would hang around for days. And sometimes it was chemical, sharp, almost like cleaning solvent, but not anything I could name. We cleaned, we checked drains, we checked everything. Nothing explained it. Then things started going missing in a way that didn't feel normal. Not, oh, I misplaced my keys. I mean objects that should have been easy to find. I lost a brand new bottle of hairspray that I hadn't even opened yet. My old phone, an S9 Plus, just vanished. I also had this webcam I used for online coaching, and one day it was simply not there. When we eventually moved out, I tore through the house again, thinking, okay, maybe it's wedged behind something. Maybe it fell into a box. Nothing. Like the house swallowed them. We moved in around early winter, late November, I think, or maybe the first week of December. And before we even had time to settle, I got sick. This was during the pandemic. I caught COVID right at the end of December, and it dragged on into January. It wasn't just a bad week. It lingered, and it messed with my energy for a long time. And then my wife, let's call her Maya, started having these brutal episodes of nausea and dizziness, vomiting, weakness, the whole thing. We went to multiple doctors, different meds, different opinions. Nothing really worked. It was so severe and constant that eventually she went to stay at her mom's place for a while. And this is the part that still sticks with me. She improved. Not instantly, but noticeably. With minimal medication, just better. She came back later when I had a freak accident. I was pulling in near the building and my hand got crushed between a car and a bike. It was fast and stupid and painful and sudden, and I remember thinking, what is going on with this year? With this place? She returned to help me manage everything while I recovered. Around the same time, my work life started collapsing in the strangest way. I had long-standing business partnerships, people I'd trusted, deals that were stable, and one after another, they failed. Not gradually, not for the same reason, just all at once, and in completely unrelated ways. One person had a sudden family crisis, another had financial trouble, another abruptly changed direction. It was like somebody snapped their fingers and my entire support system quietly fell apart. And the illnesses didn't stop. Me and Maya, both of us, had health issues constantly after moving in. Sometimes major, sometimes smaller, but it was always something. Month after month, it felt like the universe kept tossing little problems at us. Accidents, bad news, minor disasters, just enough to keep you tense all the time, like you could never exhale. And alongside all of that, my mental health started dropping. At first, I told myself it was just stress, which was true. There were life events happening, but the severity felt out of proportion. Like the sadness and the panic and the heaviness had an extra layer to them. Something sticky. Something that didn't lift even when things were calm. The house itself started showing weird signs too. There were marks on the floor, especially in the living room and the second bedroom, that wouldn't come out. We scrubbed. We tried different cleaners. It stayed. Maybe it was groundwater seepage. Maybe it was some issue under the tiles. I can't say, but it added to the feeling that something was off. There were animal things too, which might sound small, but they stuck with me. 2 different times, 2 different cats came and sat on the living room window ledge. I'm an animal person, so I fed them. One time I offered milk. Another time I offered bits of chicken I was cooking after the gym. Both cats wanted the food, but neither would come inside. Not even a paw over the ledge. They just stared past the window like the inside of the room was a line they refused to cross. At night, I started hearing things. And I need to be honest here. I questioned myself constantly. I told myself, you're stressed, you're anxious, your mind is playing tricks. But the sounds were so specific. Sometimes it sounded like dogs crying. Could have been from the nearby grounds. Sometimes it was weirder, like a voice in the passage outside, moving from the direction of the living room toward the second bedroom. The voice didn't sound clearly male or female, and I couldn't understand the words. It was like hearing language through water. One night I got up and checked. The watchman was asleep. The corridor was empty. The air was still. And that made it worse, not better. That second bedroom was always colder than the rest of the house. You could explain it. There were trees and open ground behind it, so maybe it just didn't get sunlight. But there was also this constant sensation in that room, especially later on, maybe by the 3rd year, that someone was watching. Like if you stood near the window or that corner of the room, you'd feel eyes on you. I kept dismissing it as paranoia, just a feeling, just nerves. But it never really went away. Our marriage started breaking down too. Maya and I didn't split up because of the house. We had our own issues, life pressures, old cracks. But the way things unfolded felt like an unknown catalyst kept pouring fuel on everything. The fights escalated faster than they should have. The misunderstandings turned into disasters. It felt eerie, like we were being pushed downhill when we were trying to stand still. Looking back, Maya also had a lot of unexplained health problems during those years, especially headaches. Some mild, some severe. Doctors couldn't find a clear cause. It was always maybe stress, maybe diet, maybe sleep. But nothing really clicked as an explanation. And then, here's the part that still gives me chills, because it's so simple. When I finally started preparing to leave, packing, closing things out, I felt this strange shift, like a weight was lifting, like a pressure I didn't even realize I was carrying just eased up. And the moment it eased, I realized something. I'd been living with a constant sinking feeling in that house. Not every minute, but like a background tone. A low, quiet dread. As I was on my way out, it felt like whatever that presence was, whether it was something real or just the accumulation of stress and association, was suddenly gone. Absent. And for the first time in a long time, my body felt like it could breathe. So I'm going to tell you something that still makes my stomach do that weird little drop when I think about it. A few nights ago, maybe like 4 days back, I drove out to my boyfriend Mateo's place around 8 p.m. It was already fully dark. He lives out in this quieter, country-ish part of town, the kind of area where the roads feel a little too open and there aren't a million turns or streetlights to ground you. And because I'm in Texas, there's always some kind of construction somewhere, even when you don't see workers, so I'm used to staying on high alert. Also, I drive a stick shift, so I'm always paying attention. Like, always. I'm at this one-way stoplight, waiting for traffic to pass through so I can go, and I notice a truck pull up behind me. Not just any truck, this older-looking, big truck with those painfully bright high beams. The kind that makes your whole car feel like it's being interrogated. I'm in a small car, so not shocking, but still annoying. The light changes, I go, and I'm moving quick because it's a long country stretch, and I'm just trying to get where I'm going. I'm doing like 70 in a 55. Yeah, I know. Typical trying to keep up with traffic Texas driving. But this truck is on me. No space, no polite following distance, just riding my bumper like it's personal. And I'm not even crawling, I'm moving. It didn't matter. He stayed glued to me the whole time, and I need you to remember that part. He never backed off. Those high beams were basically living in my rearview mirror. I'm on the phone with my mom during all of this. Hands-free, don't worry. And I'm talking like normal. But my eyes keep flicking to the mirror because those lights are so bright, they're in my peripheral, even when I'm looking straight ahead. Then I make a right onto this road that's kind of hard to describe unless you've driven roads like this. When you enter it, there's exactly one left turn you can take pretty early on, and up ahead there's a one-way stoplight with rumble strips leading into it. The rumble strips start kind of far back, like you hit them well before the actual intersection. There's no construction equipment, no cones, no workers, nothing pulled over on the shoulder. Just dark road, quiet air, and my car moving with this truck practically attached to my rear bumper. We pass that left turn, so at this point, if you miss it, you can't just casually oops back into it. You'd have to keep going, find somewhere to turn around, and circle back. And that's when it happens. I'm starting to roll onto the rumble strips, still talking to my mom, still watching the road, and those high beams in my mirror they shut off. Not dim, not a little flicker, not like he hit a bump, just gone, completely dark behind me. And I'm immediately like, wait, what? Because 1 second he's right there, and the next second it looks like the road behind me is empty. I check the mirror again like I'm glitching. Nothing. No lights. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's trying to pass? So I look over fast, expecting to see him coming up beside me. Nothing there either. And I'm not even exaggerating when I say it felt silent. Like I should have heard a big truck accelerate, or at least something. But there was just nothing. No engine roar, no whoosh, no tires, no sudden rush of movement. It's like the sound got swallowed with the lights, but there's nothing. Like he was never there at all. And I swear I freaked out loud. I was like, "Mom, what the hell? He was literally right behind me." Something logical, but nothing fit. I honestly thought for a second he was about to ram into me, and then he just vanished instead, which somehow felt worse. Anyway, I keep driving and I get to Mateo's, pick him up, and we head out again about 10 minutes later because we were going to grab some stuff and just chill. And the whole time I'm still replaying it, like I'm trying to catch the moment I must have missed something. So we go back down the same road. No ambulance, no hazards, no wreck. No truck tucked off in the grass. Nothing that would suggest he'd slid off the road or had some emergency. Then later, maybe like 40 minutes after that, we drive back the same way again. Still nothing. Traffic's normal. Everyone's just driving like it's any other night. And the reason it messed with me so badly is because I know what I saw. He was so close to me for so long, matching my speed, lighting up my whole car from behind. And then, right as I'm hitting those rumble strips, he turns his lights off and is just nowhere. And there's no way a truck that big quietly disappears in a second without me seeing any trace of where it went. I'm not on medication. I wasn't tired in that scary, half-asleep way. I wasn't high, I wasn't buzzed, I'd literally just gotten off work. I was fine. So yeah, I'm asking you like I asked my mom that night, because I still can't explain it. Have you ever experienced something like that? Like a car behind you just blinks out? Alright, so this happened a long time ago, around 2010, give or take, and I still get that cold, prickly feeling in my arms when I talk about it. There was this cabin out in the woods that belonged to my family. It wasn't fancy, more like a rough, old place with a basement and a long, curving driveway that always felt darker than it should have. Even when I was little, way before any of this, I never slept well there. You know how some places just feel off? Like the air is heavier for no reason? That was this cabin. And then things got worse after my buddy, I'll call him Dylan, crashed there for a while. Dylan had gotten kicked out of his parents' place and showed up with this jittery, wired energy. Back then, I didn't fully understand what was going on, but looking back, he was deep into stimulants and also weirdly obsessed with demon stuff. Like reading forums at 3 a.m. obsessed. Later, I found out he'd gone down into the basement one night completely tweaked, cut himself, and smeared blood on a Ouija board. Then he tried doing some sloppy ritual he'd pulled from some grim-looking website, one of those ancient keys kind of things. I didn't know any of that at the time. I just knew he got stranger and meaner. Eventually, he snapped at my relatives, screaming, acting like he wasn't himself, shut off the power at the breaker, and threatened people with a gun. That was the end of him staying there. We kicked him out, no debate. But here's the thing. Even after Dylan was gone, the cabin didn't go back to normal. If anything, it felt like whatever wrongness had always been there finally had permission to show itself. And later, years later, I learned two details that made my stomach drop. 1. The land had native burial sites on or near it. People had found arrowheads out in the fields for years, like the ground had memories it didn't want disturbed. 2. My grandmother, sweet, quiet, church on Sunday grandmother, had journals hidden away. Not diaries, journals, full of rituals she'd been doing out there for years. So, yeah, that's the backdrop. There were 3 moments that stand out the most. 3 times I couldn't explain away what happened, no matter how badly I wanted to. First experience. This was the most movie scene one. We were out there doing the usual. Couple friends, some drinks, junk food, video games. Nothing dark, nothing spooky, just a normal night. At one point, a little tipsy and feeling creative, I noticed this old framed picture on the kitchen wall. Nothing special, just kind of faded and dated. I got the genius idea to redraw it on a sheet of paper with all these bright, trippy colors, like a warped, psychedelic version. I finished it, laughed at myself, and put it back where it was. Then we went back to the living room and kept playing. Later that night, we're asleep, spread out in different rooms, and suddenly we hear this violent crash from the kitchen. Not a something fell over crash, a slam. We rush in there and that same picture is across the kitchen, like across, frame shattered, glass everywhere. And the distance didn't make sense. It didn't drop straight down. It looked like it got thrown, hard. And while we're standing there trying to process it, 3 of us wide awake now, one of the bedroom doors down the hall starts opening. Slowly, smoothly, like someone's hand is turning the knob and pulling it open, except there wasn't anyone there. Inside that room, our friend and his girlfriend were asleep. Second experience. This one was the creepiest because it felt aware. This was before smartphones, before you could blame everything on Bluetooth or some weird app. No internet out there, just us and a basic stereo system someone had brought. We were watching a comedy. I can't even remember which one. I just remember we were laughing, having a good time. Then, out of nowhere, the stereo speakers crackle and this distorted voice blasts through, like a warped, gravelly shout. I swear it sounded like it was yelling something about trash or garbage, something like that. Every single one of us froze, just dead still, staring at each other like, "Did you hear that? Please tell me you heard that." And right then, like the timing was planned, the trash bag by the door tips over. Beer cans spill and clatter across the floor. And before anyone can even speak, we hear this heavy scraping sound upstairs. Now, upstairs there was this old hardwood dresser, solid, thick, the kind you don't casually bump out of place. Easily a couple 100 pounds. You'd need 2 people to move it without cursing the whole time. But we hear it dragging, like someone's shoving it across the floor. We go up there, slow, nervous, trying to act brave. And sure enough, the dresser had moved. Not just shifted, it had slid far enough that it was partially blocking a bedroom door from opening properly. And the worst part? One of our friends had planned to sleep in that room that night. Guess who suddenly decided the couch downstairs was more comfortable? Third experience. This is the last time I ever went there alone. It was winter, snow on the ground. One of those nights where the cold feels personal, like it's leaning into you. I'd left my backpack there, school stuff, something important I needed for the next day, so I drove out with Dylan and asked him to come with me to grab it. He refused. He kept making excuses. His knees hurt. He needed to call someone. He was tired. Just excuse after excuse. At the time, I thought he was being lazy. Now I think he was scared to go back inside after what he'd done. So I went alone. I walked down that winding driveway, snow crunching under my shoes, and the whole time I had this rising sense of dread, like my body was trying to warn me and my brain kept going, "Relax, it's just a cabin, you're being dramatic." But it was so quiet out there that night, it didn't feel natural. No wind, no animals, nothing. I stepped inside and, this is such a small detail, but it still freaks me out. My flip phone suddenly started beeping like it was trying to record audio. Then it beeped again. Memory full. Again. Memory full. Like it had been recording on its own. That was the first moment I thought I should leave. But I didn't. My backpack was right where I left it, on the couch. I could see it. I walked toward it, and that's when I realized the cabin felt wrong in a different way. The little nightlight in the hall was off. The heater wasn't running. No hum, no background sound. It was like the building was holding its breath. As I passed the hall, the floor heater suddenly kicked on with the most awful screeching sound I've ever heard, like metal grinding against metal, but angrier. And I stopped dead. Not because I wanted to, because my body just locked. And then I felt it. This pulling sensation, like an invisible current tugging me down the hall toward that sound. Not a gentle pull, a forceful one, like something had hooked into me and was trying to reel me in. My body moved without me deciding to move. I threw my hands out in front of me, like a defensive stance, and it felt like I was pushing against something thick and heavy, like pressure in the air. And then I yelled, screamed really, something that didn't sound like English. It came out like a full sentence in a language I don't know. The syllables were sharp and rhythmic, almost like I'd practiced it. I have no idea what I said. I still don't. But the moment I shouted it, that pulling force snapped, like a rope breaking, and I could move again. I lunged to the couch, grabbed my backpack, and ran. I got to the doorway and I looked back, and this is the part that messes with me the most. I yelled again. Just one word this time. Something like Freesha or Freesha, I don't know. I grabbed a loose cord from the floor without thinking and whipped it up so it slapped the tin roof outside with a loud crack. And right then, the curtains on the nearest window yanked shut. Not fluttered, not drifted. They snapped closed like someone grabbed them and pulled. I didn't walk after that. I sprinted up the driveway so hard I thought I'd puke. Dylan was waiting up near the car, and we left immediately. When I told him what happened, he didn't even look surprised. He just went, "Yeah, it gets weird out there sometimes." And that's when something inside me went cold. Because normal people don't react like that. Not unless they already know. I'll say this because I mean it. I'm not telling you this to romanticize any of it. I'm not trying to sound edgy or mystical. I'm telling you because it scared me in a way I still can't fully explain, even now. And if there's one thing I took from all of it, one hard, simple warning, it's this. Don't mess with rituals you don't understand. Don't treat spiritual stuff like it's a party trick. You don't get to choose what answers back. So, I was never really a kid who had a bunch of spooky, unexplainable stuff happen to them. I didn't grow up seeing ghosts in the hallway or hearing whispers in the walls or anything like that. But there was one moment, one single moment, that still clings to me, even now. And it's weirdly comforting and unsettling at the same time, because I later found out a lot of other people swear they saw something similar when they were kids. I think I was about 7 when it happened, maybe a little younger. And honestly, that's part of what frustrates me, because if it had happened when I was older, I feel like I'd be able to describe every tiny detail. Instead, it's like my memory is a room with the lights turned halfway down. Back then, we lived in this 2-story house. My parents, Marina and Eduardo, were there, and my older sister Leah too. The downstairs was our space, and upstairs was my grandpa, Seodavi's place. He liked his quiet, his little routines, and the way the sunlight hit the upstairs landing in the afternoons. That day, everyone else was upstairs with him, talking, laughing, doing whatever adults and older kids do when they're together. And I was downstairs alone, completely unbothered, just doing kid stuff, probably fiddling with a toy or zoning out in front of the TV. At some point, I got off the couch and wandered into the kitchen. I don't even remember why. I just remember the movement, couch to kitchen, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And here's something important, because people always picture these stories happening at night. It was daytime. The sun was out. The house was bright. And somehow that made it worse, because it felt like this shouldn't be possible in the middle of an ordinary day. Our kitchen had this round window, kind of like a little porthole. And if you looked through it, you could see the rooftops of the houses behind ours, uneven lines of tiles and bright sky above them. I stepped into the kitchen, glanced toward that window, and my stomach just dropped. Because there was a figure out there. Not a person I could actually see, not someone with a face or recognizable clothes, more like a shape, a silhouette, standing on the roofline like it belonged there. It looked like a man, and he was wearing a hat. That part is burned into me. The hat shape was so clear, like a brim, like the kind you'd recognize instantly even if everything else was wrong. I leaned slightly, like my brain was trying to make sense of it. Like, okay, what am I looking at? Is that a neighbor? Is someone working up there? But the more I stared, the less it made sense. Because I couldn't make out anything else. No facial features, no color, no texture, not even the sense of light hitting fabric. It was like the figure absorbed detail, like it refused to become real. Just shadow. And the strangest part? It felt like it was watching me. Not in a cartoon way, not with glowing eyes or anything dramatic. Just this heavy, undeniable feeling of attention, like I'd walked into the room and realized someone had already been standing there, silently waiting. I panicked, like full-body instinctive panic. I ran. I remember my feet slapping the stairs, my voice already breaking before I even got words out. I burst upstairs and grabbed at my mom, crying and babbling about a man, someone outside, someone on the roof, someone in the kitchen window. But when we got to the kitchen, nothing. The rooftops were empty. The window showed only tile and sky. No movement, no shape, no hat, no anything. My parents searched around anyway, checked doors, looked out back, even called up to a neighbor. And all I could do was cry and cling to my mom like my body still hadn't caught up with the idea that it was gone. Later, they told me I'd been really scared, more scared than they'd ever seen me. Not just a quick startle, not a kid overreacting, like something had genuinely rattled me. And I believe that. Because after that, for days, maybe longer, I couldn't sleep right. I'd lie in bed with my eyes wide open, replaying the shape of that hat in my head, imagining that if I looked out any window for too long, I'd see it again. But I never did. That's the thing. It didn't come back. It didn't haunt the house. There were no follow-up sightings, no footsteps on the roof, no second encounter. Just that one moment. And if it was just some ordinary guy, why would he be on the rooftops behind our house? Why would he stand still like that? Why would he vanish between the time I ran upstairs and the time my parents came down? I've tried to explain it away in a dozen ways. A shadow from something else, a trick of light, my imagination filling in the blanks. But the older I get, the more I remember how solid it felt in the moment, how sure my body was that what I was seeing was real. And here's what keeps pulling me back in. Years later, out of curiosity, I started looking around online, and I found story after story, people describing a shadowy man, often with a hat, seen when they were children. Different houses, different countries, different years, but this strangely similar image. That still messes with me. Because it's one thing to have a creepy childhood memory. It's another thing to realize you might not be the only one who remembers the same shape. So I don't know. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was something my 7-year-old brain couldn't process, and it filed it away as man in a hat. Or maybe it really was something. Either way, I've carried it for a long time, and I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever seen anything like that? Even just once? Even as a kid? I'd honestly love to hear it, because this story still sits in the back of my mind like an unanswered question. So, this happened back in 2003, and I still get that little chill in my stomach when I think about it. My cousin Marissa and her husband were throwing a small party. Nothing fancy, just a normal get-together. I was 19, and I still didn't drive yet, so my mom drove me and my friend Jade over to Marissa's place. When we pulled up, it was quiet. Inside, it was only Marissa. Her husband and one of his buddies had run out to grab snacks and beer, and her kids were with a sitter. So it was literally just the four of us in the house. Me, my mom, Jade, and Marissa. My mom stayed for a bit, chatting like moms do, catching up and asking a million questions about the new place. About 15 minutes after we got there, I went to use the bathroom. Everyone else was still in the living room, just talking. And here's where it gets weird. I'm sitting there, minding my own business, when the doorknob starts turning. Not a jiggle, like someone is genuinely trying to open it. So I go, "Hey, give me a minute, I'll be out." But it kept turning, and it got more forceful, like whoever it was getting impatient. I remember feeling annoyed, like, seriously? So I hurried up, pulled my jeans up, washed my hands fast, and swung the door open, fully expecting to see my mom or Jade being goofy or something. Instead, I see this older man, maybe late 50s or early 60s, kind of hunched like he didn't want to be noticed. He had on this button-up shirt, like a dress shirt, and the second I made eye contact, he ducked and moved fast, like a quick shuffle run, straight into one of the bedrooms down the hall. I just stood there for a second like, what? Who is that? I went straight back into the living room and said, "Who is the older guy that just went into the bedroom?" And they all stared at me like I was speaking a different language. My mom was like, "What older guy?" Jade was like, "Marissa, is someone else here?" Marissa swore up and down nobody had arrived yet. So I explained everything, how the knob turned, how I answered, how I opened the door and saw him, and how he ran into the bedroom. And Marissa got this look on her face. Not shocked exactly, more like resigned. She told me, really quietly, that she'd seen him once before. Apparently, not long after they moved in, only a few months, she'd gotten out of the shower one morning, and she looked up and saw an older man standing in the hallway, just watching. She said it was only a couple seconds, then he was gone. Like gone. And then she said it, almost like she didn't want to make it real by saying it out loud. "I think this house is haunted." Later that night, when more people finally showed up, we were all outside on the back porch. I was sitting on the steps, and the porch connected right into the kitchen. The kitchen was empty, no one in there. I had a clear view of the sink through the doorway, and I swear to you, the faucet handle started moving, like it was being turned back and forth by an invisible hand. The water would come on, shut off, come on again, just little bursts. And the handle itself was shifting like someone was testing it. A couple people near me noticed too, because the conversation kind of stumbled into this awkward pause. Like nobody wanted to be the first one to say, are you seeing that? I've had more experiences than just this one. Enough that I've stopped trying to convince people who already decided they don't believe. All I can tell you is, I know what I saw. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. I wasn't sleep deprived or imagining things. I don't hallucinate. I'm not telling it for attention, because what else can I say? It happened. So, I can't pin down the exact year, but it had to be around 2017 or maybe 2018. I was about 16, that weird age where everything feels heavier than it should. We'd moved from England to Ireland not long before that, maybe a couple years in, and we were living out in the Midlands in this tiny town where it felt like nothing ever changed. Back then, I was miserable a lot of the time. School was a big part of it. I didn't just dislike it, I dreaded it. And when you're that low, you start reaching for anything that might pull you out. For me, that turned into this earnest, kind of desperate faith phase. I'd pray a lot. Not in a calm, spiritual way, more like I was bargaining. Like, if I believe hard enough, maybe God will finally cut me a break. And it was right in the middle of that phase that I stumbled across this YouTube video. It was one of those dramatic, intense testimonies. Someone claiming Jesus brought him to hell. Not metaphorically. Like, literally took him there and showed him what happens to sinners. The guy described people screaming, souls burning, dark figures tormenting them. The whole thing was basically a horror film wrapped in religion. Then, of course, he wakes up in bed and insists it wasn't a dream at all. It was real, a warning. I remember sitting there thinking, okay, I don't know if I buy this, but what if I'm wrong? Because even if half of me didn't believe it, the other half was terrified. That kind of fear doesn't need proof. It just needs an image in your mind, and suddenly it's living there rent-free. Anyway, not long after I watched it, like that same evening, I started feeling off. Unsettled in this really physical way. I was alone in my bedroom, and I swear it felt like there was someone else in there with me. Not a creepy vibe exactly. More like the hairs on your arms kind of certainty. Like my body had decided, before my brain could catch up, that I was being watched. And then it turned into this sharp feeling of danger, like I needed to get out of that room immediately. So I left. I remember moving fast but trying not to look panicked. Like if I acted normal, it would stay normal. I walked out onto the landing and started down the stairs, heading for the downstairs rooms where my family was. My mom was in the living room, my dad in the kitchen, and my little brother, well, not little, but younger than me, was around too. Just knowing people were down there made me feel safer. And this is the part that still makes my stomach flip, even now. Because the second I got near the bottom of the staircase, right before I could turn into any room, I felt a firm tap on the back of my shoulder. Not a brush, not a twitch of fabric. A tap, like a finger. A deliberate, hey. I spun around so hard I nearly lost my balance, and I screamed. Like, full-on, no dignity, primal panic screamed. And there was nobody there. Nothing. Just the empty staircase behind me. I stood there frozen, staring up the steps, my heart smashing against my ribs like it was trying to escape. And then I heard my mum shouting from the living room, "Leah, what happened? Are you okay?" Her voice suddenly sharp with that parent panic. I don't even remember what I said to her. I think I mumbled something like, "Nothing, sorry, just, I thought," because how do you explain that you felt something touch you when no one was there? How do you say that out loud without feeling ridiculous? But for the rest of that evening, I was a wreck. The weirdest part is, nothing like that ever happened again. We stayed in that house only a little while longer before moving, and there were no other taps, no shadows, no voices, no repeat of anything remotely paranormal. And since then, years later, still nothing like it. So I don't tell this story like I'm trying to convince anyone it was a demon or a ghost or whatever. I honestly don't know what it was. I'm not even someone who's obsessed with demons and religious stuff. I've always been way more interested in UFOs, weird creatures, cryptids, that kind of thing. And yeah, I know how it sounds, but I'll be straight with you. I've also had a UFO experience when I was younger, around 11, that I still can't explain. I swear I saw a classic saucer-shaped thing outside my bedroom window. I'm fully aware that mentioning that makes some people immediately write me off, but I'd rather be honest than selectively credible. So here's where I land with it. Maybe the tap was supernatural. Maybe it was my brain misfiring from fear after watching something that terrified me. Maybe my body was so wound up that it turned a normal sensation, static, muscle twitch, a strap shifting, into something my mind interpreted as a touch. I genuinely don't know. But I do know it felt real. It felt external. And the timing, right after watching that hell video, still messes with me. And the reason I'm even telling you now is because I kept it quiet for a long time. I think part of me worried that if I told people I'd had both a UFO story and a something touched me story, nobody would take me seriously at all. So if you've ever had something like this happen, especially the feeling of being watched, the sudden dread, the physical touch that shouldn't be possible, I'd honestly like to hear what you think it might have been. Even if the answer is, that sounds like a fear response, I'm open to that. I'm not looking for a neat label. I'm just trying to understand what happened on those stairs. So, we just got the keys to our new place, this one-room rental flat in Chai Chi. If you've lived in Singapore long enough, you know the vibe of those older HDB layouts, right? The narrow walkways, units facing each other, the kitchen kind of separated from the main hall. It's not scary exactly, but it feels like the walls have seen things. Quiet, aged energy. And honestly, the block is mostly elderly residents. You hardly see younger people around, so my husband and I, mid-30s, newly married, really stand out a bit. We'd already been living there about 5-6 weeks. Totally normal. No weird smells, no strange sounds, nothing. I even spent a couple nights home alone while my husband, Hazik, worked graveyard shifts. Slept like a baby. No shadows, no nonsense. Until that night. That day, we were dealing with this wardrobe delivery. Brand new, but of course it came with missing parts, and the instructions were basically useless. So we were doing the whole trial and error, take it apart, put it back, argue a little, laugh a little thing. Around 8+, I headed to my parents' place for a while, and Hazik stayed back to continue assembling it. When I finally came home after midnight, he'd basically been at it the whole night, with breaks in between, but still, the place looked like a furniture explosion happened. We chatted for a bit, then we prayed Isha together. I waited on purpose because I wanted to pray in congregation with him. After that, I was exhausted, so I knocked out in the hall. No bedroom, right? Just the main space. So I slept there with the lights on. He stayed up to clean the mess, pack the cardboard, wipe down the floor, all that. And then, I suddenly woke up screaming. Okay, here's the thing. I do talk in my sleep sometimes. I've even screamed before. So normally, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But this scream was different. It was so loud that even I shocked myself, like it came from somewhere deep in my chest. And the reason was simple. At that exact moment, I felt something touch my right thigh. Not a dreamy, floaty, maybe it happened kind of touch. A real touch, like a hand making contact. Hazik immediately ran out from the kitchen and was like, "What happened?" Are you okay? And I, because I was embarrassed, because I didn't want to sound dramatic, brushed it off. I said it was just a weird dream, blamed it on being half asleep, acted like everything was fine. And then, I just went back to sleep. Yes, I know. Terrible decision. But in the moment, I just wanted it to be nothing. He had planned to stay awake until Fajr, but I guess the tiredness hit him and he dozed off around 5-ish. We only woke up around 7 a.m., and here's what really messed with me. We missed Fajr. That almost never happens, especially for me. I'm the kind that wakes up the second my alarm goes off, like my eyes just snap open. But that morning, it was like we were both just knocked out. Later that day, Hazik told me something he hadn't mentioned earlier, and the way he said it, I could tell he'd been holding it in. He told me the landing near our lift lobby, right beside our unit, was filthy, like properly dirty. There were stains on the floor that looked like old blood. And at night, that area is dark, like the kind of dark that makes you walk a bit faster without even realizing. Then he said, I didn't want to tell you last night, but something happened after you fell asleep. Apparently, around 3 a.m., he went downstairs to throw away the cardboard boxes from the wardrobe. We live on the 10th floor. Doors open. Doors close. Open. Close. And it was completely quiet. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. Like, the lift was stopping, but nobody was entering or exiting. Level 9, doors open, still nobody. Then it reached level 10. He got in, but he said he felt uneasy. Not panicky, just that feeling like something isn't right. But he told himself not to be paranoid, threw the boxes, came back up. When he got home, he lit a cigarette and stood by the kitchen window. Our unit faces another older block, not rental, and their corridor faces outward, so you can kind of see into some of their units if the windows are open. While he was smoking, he noticed someone standing inside a unit opposite. The unit was completely dark, but there was a harsh light shining straight onto the person's face, like a phone screen at max brightness. He couldn't see details, just the outline of a head in that weird glow. He assumed it was just someone doom-scrolling at 3 a.m. Then he heard me scream. He ran back to check on me, and when he saw I was okay and trying to downplay it, he said he saw something else. Just for a split second. A figure. Big. Red. And I mean red like the thing itself was red, not someone wearing red clothes. It had long hair, but thin and patchy, like those wispy strands you'd imagine on someone very old. And it ran, like it darted, and disappeared. After that, Hazik switched on all the lights and started deliberately making noise. Walking around, coughing, opening and closing drawers, like he wanted the whole flat to feel occupied, so whatever it was would know he was awake and present. Later, when we talked properly, I told him about what I felt, that touch on my thigh, and how I didn't even realize he left the house, even though I'm usually a light sleeper. At first, he asked me carefully, like indirectly, whether maybe something followed me home. Like maybe I didn't wash properly, maybe I came back unclean, you know? I shut that down immediately. I told him, no, I felt normal. We prayed together. I did my ablution properly, everything, including my feet. And the more we talked, the more something clicked for me. So here's my conclusion. That thing didn't follow me. It followed him. From the lift lobby. Like, whatever was lingering around that dark landing, whatever was attached to that weird stop-start silence in the lift, maybe it came up with him. Maybe it noticed him. Maybe it just tried its luck. And maybe it tried to disturb me, but my scream caught it off guard. Because honestly, it didn't get far. Nothing else happened after that. No lingering smell, no continued disturbances, no nightmare streak. Just that one sharp, bizarre, what the heck was that moment? To me, it felt like something testing the waters, seeing if it could get a reaction, see how far it could go. Lucky for us, it failed. And yeah, that's the story. Not the kind where something terrible happens. Just one of those supernatural moments where you sit there afterward like, okay, that was real. That definitely happened. Oh, and the funniest part? This was only a few days ago. Like, I'm still processing it, honestly. Okay, so let me tell you what happened, because I still don't know what to do with it in my head. So I went to the Myrtles Plantation on December 29th, 2025, and it was just a self-guided tour, nothing fancy. I was there with my dad, and I was honestly just excited because I love photography. Like, I'm young, sure, but I'm serious about it. I brought two cameras, my Canon and my older Olympus, because I like having options. Early on, I stepped into the only bedroom you can access on the first floor. It's got this famous mirror that everyone calls haunted, and of course I'm like, okay, perfect photo opportunity. I take a bunch of pictures of the mirror on my Canon, and at the time I didn't notice anything weird. It felt normal. Quiet, kind of heavy like old houses always feel, but normal. Later, this is important. When I'm scrolling through the Canon photos, I see these dark shapes in a couple shots. Not like, oops, I smudged the lens dark. More like figures. Blurry, shadowy forms that I swear were not there when I took the photos. I didn't see anyone reflected. I didn't see anything standing behind me. But in the pictures? Yeah, there they were. Then there's my Olympus. That camera's battery is usually stubborn, in a good way. It doesn't die easily. I charged it the night before, fully, and I know it was full when we got there. But while I'm walking around the first floor, I check it and the battery is already dragging like it ran a marathon, almost dead. And I'm like, how? I barely used it. So at this point, I'm kind of on edge, but trying to be chill because I don't want to psych myself out. The second floor is only for people staying overnight, so everyone on the tour is mostly on the first floor, moving room to room. Eventually, I end up back in the main hall, near the front door, and I hear this tiny sound, like a faint click. I look down toward my side, right where the sound came from, and I see one of my earrings on the floor. Just dropped, like it popped out by itself. And here's where it gets weird in a way that feels too specific to ignore. There's this ghost story there about a spirit named Eliza. She's known for messing with earrings, especially dangling ones. And of course the one that fell was a dangle. People say she does it because she's jealous. The story goes that she was enslaved there and would listen in near the men's parlor, trying to learn how to be better, how to survive, whatever she could pick up. And then she got caught, and as punishment, one of her ears was cut. So she'd cover it with a green head wrap. So now she's known for taking earrings, usually from the left ear, because of the whole ear thing. But the earring that fell for me, it came off my right ear. And I'm standing there thinking, okay, that's not the usual story. But then I realized my left ear had been kind of blocked because I was wearing my headphones. Like, they cover my ears pretty snug. So if something, or someone, wanted to mess with an earring, my right ear would have been easier. And speaking of the headphones, they're honestly the creepiest part of the whole day. Because earlier, on the self-guided tour, they give you one of those little devices you can scan with. You scan a spot in a room, and it plays audio about whatever you're looking at. History, stories, all that. But I'd already done a ton of research before going. I'd watched a bunch of stuff, read about the place, the legends, all of it. So I barely used the device. I only really put it on at the gift shop so it wasn't in my hands. I'm walking around listening to my own music, just vibing, and then my dad looks at me and goes, "Hey, are you gonna listen to that?" I'm like, "Listen to what?" And it's telling the story about a dress that's laid out on the bed in that downstairs bedroom. The thing is, I didn't scan anything in that room. I didn't even go near the bed. I only walked in, took photos of the mirror, and walked out. So why was the device suddenly playing that exact room? Like it had been triggered. I didn't even know what to say. I just stood there, kind of frozen, like my brain couldn't decide if it was a glitch or something that wanted my attention. After that, we go into the men's parlor, and there's this guide there answering questions. Super kind, very calm, not pushy or cheesy at all. While we're talking, someone brings up the earring thing, and I'm like, half joking, half not. Yeah, I'm about to put my headphones back on so she doesn't take the other one. But here's the part that made my stomach drop. I had turned my headphones off, like fully off, because I was being polite and listening to the guide. I put them back on, and my music starts playing, by itself. No tapping the button, no, maybe it auto-connected. I had shut them down. I tried to laugh it off, but it didn't feel funny. Then I end up chatting with this girl around my age, sweet, chatty, totally normal, and this new group walks in, like 10 or 15 people. The girl tells them to watch their earrings, and the whole group looks at me like, wait, what? So I explain, like, all of it. The mirror photos, the battery, the earring, the ghost story, the device playing audio in the wrong room, my headphones turning themselves back on. And there's this guy, maybe a little older than me, who just goes completely silent, like stunned. He doesn't even react the normal way people react when they think you're exaggerating. He just stares at me like I'm the creepy thing in the room. Someone in the group asks, "That actually happened? Like, historically?" And the girl jumps in like, "Yes, that's the story here. That's what they say happened." And suddenly the whole mood shifts. People stop smiling. You can feel them getting cautious, like they didn't expect the place to get personal that fast. So that's the plantation day. But the part that really messed with me happened when I got home. Because I start going through the Olympus photos, and a bunch of them are just gone. Deleted. Not blurry, not corrupted, deleted. And I know what I shot. I remember taking them. So I call my friend, his name's Miles, and I'm like, "Okay, tell me I'm not losing it." I show him the Olympus battery icon on video call. It's green. Full. He literally sees it. He goes, "Wait, it's fine. It's full." And I'm like, "Thank you." And then, no joke, I look back down at the screen and it drops again. Back to nearly dead. Red. Like it never recovered at all. Miles sees it change, like he watches it happen. And now we're both freaking out, because that's not, "Oh, you probably misread it." That's not, "Maybe it recalibrated." It flipped right in front of us like something was playing with it. I turn the camera off and on again. Still red. I check again. Still red. And I just sat there thinking, okay, people always say ghosts drain batteries, right? Like they pull energy from electronics, especially cameras. And if that's true, if that's even a little true, then it almost feels like something drained my camera just to have enough energy to mess with me, and then take my earring. Like it needed power to do something physical. And the fact that the battery went full for a moment, just long enough for my friend to see it, and then dropped again, that's what makes me feel like it wasn't random. So yeah, that's my Myrtle story. And I'm not saying I know what it was. Okay, so I've never really known how to tell this story without sounding like I'm either auditioning for a horror movie or admitting I should have been in therapy a lot sooner. But you're here, you're listening, and I'm just gonna tell it the way it happened. So, the first weird thing, like the first time I felt that, oh, something is in here with me, feeling, was one night when I was sitting in the living room with all the lights off, pitch black. I was waiting for my mom to finish brushing her teeth before we went upstairs, because I didn't like walking around the hallway alone at night. I was just sitting there, trying to be brave, staring into the dark like that helps. And then, right behind me, someone wolf whistled. Not like from across the room, not like from the hallway. I mean, right behind me, like it was aimed into my ear. I spun around so fast I nearly fell off the couch. There was nobody there. Nothing. Just the living room, the dark, and my own heartbeat trying to climb out of my throat. When Mom came out, I asked her, "Did you just whistle at me?" She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. She was like, "No?" And the thing is, none of us could whistle. Not properly. Not at that time. We'd all tried, and it was always just sad little puffs of air. But I laughed it off, because what else do you do? And I started jokingly calling whatever it was, Rory. I picked the name because my older sister hates it for no reason, like it genuinely creeps her out. So I was like, fine, if it's gonna hang around, I'm naming it something that annoys you. A few days later, my cat started acting wrong. At first I thought it was thunder, or maybe one of the other pets had gotten stuck somewhere. But I was lying in bed and I felt this low vibration through the mattress, like a tiny engine. And I realized it was her, growling, like a full, deep, warning growl. Not playful, not annoyed. I picked her up and she was stiff and shaking. I thought maybe she wanted to go outside, so I opened my bedroom door to let her out. The second the door cracked open, she bolted. Not down the stairs, not toward her food, straight into the hallway, and then she stopped at the edge of the darkness and stared down it like she was watching something move. She sat on my bedroom threshold, growling into this black corridor, and then she did this thing that still makes my stomach turn when I remember it. She crept behind my door frame and kept peeking around it, like she was hiding from something but couldn't stop checking where it was. My brain immediately went, someone broke in. Because honestly, that's the least paranormal explanation, right? So I tiptoed out, heart banging, and I flicked the hallway light on. Nothing. No person. No shadow. No other cats. Just the normal hallway. Too normal. Like it was mocking me. I scooped her up again and walked her down the hall anyway, room by room, like she was a tiny fuzzy guard dog. I could feel her heart hammering against my arm, and she was trembling so hard it felt like she might vibrate right out of my hands. Then I put her down in the room she'd been staring at, and she immediately started sniffing. Every corner, every spot on the floor, like she was checking for a smell. And then, just like that, she calmed down, like the danger had left. I was standing there thinking, okay, so it wasn't a person, but it was still something. After that, the house started doing little things. Small, stupid things that you can almost explain away if you try hard enough. Like one afternoon, I watched my makeup brush, lying on the floor where I'd dropped it, roll across the room by itself. Not tip, not wobble, roll, like someone nudged it. Not a big dramatic shake, just this steady little movement, like someone on the other side was testing it. Tap, tap, wiggle. Then again. And it didn't happen once. It happened for hours, night after night, for weeks. I'd lie there staring at the door like if I stared hard enough, it would stop being real. Sometimes I'd call out, very stupidly, "Mom?" even though I knew she was asleep. Sometimes I'd whisper, "Stop it," like you can scold whatever that is, like it's a naughty child. And then one day, it stopped. Completely. 2 whole months went by with nothing. No brush rolling, no handle twitching, no cat growling at empty air. I started telling myself I'd imagined the whole thing, or I'd been overtired, or I'd watched too many scary videos online. You know, anything reasonable. And then I woke up one night and I couldn't breathe. I woke up already panicking, like I'd been yanked out of sleep mid-drown. And I swear to you, it felt like hands were around my throat. Pressure. Firm. Real. Like thumbs pressing in. My brain did that awful thing where it tries to make sense and can't. Like, this isn't possible. This isn't possible. This isn't... I was seconds away from blacking out again when I jerked, tried to sit up, and reached for my neck. The second I moved, it stopped. I sat there clutching my throat, gulping air like I'd just surfaced from underwater. And the room was silent. The kind of silence that feels like it has weight. 2 days later, it happened again. Same thing. Wake up, choking, pressure, panic. That cold, awful certainty that something was right there. And then, nothing. 3 months, nothing at all. And I almost wish it had stayed that way, because what happened after was somehow worse. Not because it was more violent, but because it was so personal. One morning, I woke up feeling this weird sting on my left shoulder. On the back of it, where you can't really see properly without twisting like a pretzel. I went to the mirror, and there it was, an actual bite mark. Human-shaped, like teeth. Not massive, not animal, just a person bite. And I hadn't been bitten the day before. Nobody in my house is out here biting shoulders in the night, okay? And I'm small. I'm not built like some contortionist who can chomp their own shoulder blade. It wasn't possible. I stood there staring at it, and I remember laughing, like a shaky, disbelieving laugh, because what do you even do with that? So I went back to joking. I started saying the name again, Rory, like it was some little prankster ghost roommate. I'd say dumb stuff like, "All right then, Rory, if you're here, do something," or "Possess me if you're so brave," trying to make it funny, trying to make it smaller than it felt. And then one night, somewhere between midnight and 2, I was sitting on the edge of my bed talking to myself, just thinking out loud, you know? The house was quiet, and suddenly I felt this cold. Not it's winter cold, not a draft cold. I mean ice in your bones cold. I actually remember thinking, wow, it got cold fast. And then immediately after that, I felt something else. That sensation like you're being watched so hard it almost burns. And I knew, somehow I just knew, it was from the hallway, from behind my bedroom door. I froze, like fully froze. I've been scared before. I've jumped at noises. I've run up the stairs after turning off the lights. I've done the usual stuff. But this was different. My body would not move. It felt like my muscles locked up while my brain screamed. My hands went numb. My chest was tight. And the cold didn't just surround me. It felt like it was coming toward me. It felt low, like it was on all fours. I sat there for, I don't even know, maybe 20 minutes? It felt like an hour, just staring at my door, barely breathing, feeling those invisible eyes on me. And then, as suddenly as it started, it eased, like pressure lifting, like the air relaxing. When I could finally move again, I yanked the door open because, I don't know, part of me wanted to prove I wasn't losing it. The hallway was empty, nothing out of place, nothing weird, just the same boring hall I'd always had. After that, things didn't really happen to me anymore. Not directly. But my life changed. My baby sister was born. She's not even a year old, and she does this thing where she'll just stare into one corner of the living room, like she's locked onto something. Not smiling, not tracking a toy, just staring. And I know babies stare at nothing sometimes. I know that. but it's the same spot, over and over. Like that corner has something in it that the rest of us can't see. And then there's me. I'd never fainted in my life, not once. And then, out of nowhere, I fainted twice in the same month. No illness, no explanation, just lights out, waking up confused on the floor. Mom has her own stories too. She's told me she'll hear my other sister calling for her, clear as day, when that sister is fully asleep. And she's mentioned seeing what looks like a head peeking around a door frame, like someone checking if the coast is clear. So, I don't know. Sometimes I tell myself it was stress, or sleep paralysis, or my brain connecting random events into one creepy narrative because that's what brains do. But then I remember the whistle, right in my ear, and the bite mark, and my cat shaking like she'd seen death itself. And the strangest little detail of all, this always makes me pause. After that first whistle in the dark, I could whistle. For the first time in my entire life, I could whistle like it was nothing, like someone flipped a switch in me. So yeah, was it a spirit? Or am I just not okay? I honestly don't know. I just know the house felt less empty than it should have. And sometimes, even now, if the hallway is dark and I'm alone, I still catch myself listening, just in case I hear that sound again. So, I've never touched a Ouija board in my life, and honestly, after you hear this, you'll understand why I plan to keep it that way. This story came to me through my Aunt Marisol. It happened when my mom and her brothers and sisters were kids, back when they lived in this creaky old duplex out in Idaho, the kind that always smelled a little like dust and cold wood, no matter how warm you tried to keep it. The place had a shared basement. Both sides of the duplex went down to the same concrete steps, and tucked off to one side was this crawl space that ran underneath both units. It was low enough you had to crouch, dark enough that your flashlight felt like it was working overtime, and the ground was just dirt, packed earth. Thick wooden posts held everything up, and the whole space had that hush to it, like it swallowed sound. My grandma, Lena, actually cleaned it out on purpose so the kids could play down there. She figured it was better to give them a hideout than have them running wild outside after dark. And they loved it. They turned it into whatever they wanted: a fort, a pirate cave, a secret clubhouse. They'd drag down old blankets, make up stories, whisper and giggle like the crawl space itself was part of the game. Then one afternoon, my mom, Tessa, and her brother, Rico, got bored and started digging in the dirt near the very back, where the ceiling dipped even lower. Just messing around, scraping at the ground with their hands like they were searching for treasure. And in a way, they were, because they hit something flat, something hard. They pulled it out, brushed it off, and it was a Ouija board. Not a new one either, worn looking, like it had been handled a lot. None of them knew where it came from. They all swore they'd never seen it before. Nobody admitted bringing it down there. It was just there, like it had been waiting. And of course, they were kids, curious, half scared, half thrilled. They didn't really understand what it was. They just knew it was a spooky game. So they tried it. They sat in a little circle in the dirt and put their fingers on the planchette and started asking the kind of dumb questions kids ask. Is anyone here? What's your name? Laughing when nothing happened, daring each other to take it seriously. But the fun didn't last long because my grandma found out. And when I tell you she didn't play around, she did not play around. Their family was very religious, strict, devout, and Lena was the kind of woman who could silence a whole room just by standing in the doorway. When she saw what they'd dragged out, she went cold. No yelling, not at first. Just this hard, furious quiet. She snatched it up like it was something contaminated, marched it upstairs, and destroyed it. Not just tossed it, destroyed it. My aunt said she cut it into pieces, cracked it, tore it up until it was nothing but scraps, and then she took those scraps out to the trash like she was taking out something dangerous. And after that, she made it very clear. They were never to mess with anything like that again. Ever. The kids were shaken, of course. They stayed out of the basement for a couple days, probably more out of fear of Grandma than anything else. But kids forget. Routines come back, and eventually they wandered down there again, back into their little underground world like nothing ever happened. Here's the part that still makes my skin tighten. The crawl space was the same as always. Same dirt floor, same beams, same stale smell. And they hadn't brought anything new down there. No toys, no cardboard, nothing. They were just going to play. But sitting right out in the open on the dirt was a single piece of thick, torn cardboard. Just one. They picked it up, and printed on it was a single letter. One lonely letter. Like it had been cut clean from the board. And the thing is, everyone recognized it immediately, because it wasn't random cardboard. It was that cardboard. The same texture, the same printing style. A fragment that should not have existed anymore. They all froze, staring at it, looking at each other, waiting for somebody to admit it was a prank, waiting for one of the older kids to laugh. Nobody did, because nobody had done it. And when Grandma Lena saw that piece, she didn't hesitate like she had with the board. She didn't argue. She didn't debate what it could be. Her face just changed, like she'd gone from angry to afraid. To her, it wasn't just a leftover scrap. It was a message. Not a whole sentence, not something dramatic, just enough. E, as in, I'm here. Still here. After that, she had a priest come bless the house. Not a casual prayer either. Full blessing, holy water, the whole thing. She was convinced something had gotten invited in, and she wanted it out. But even after the blessing, my mom said the house never felt totally normal. Little things. The kind you could explain away if you tried hard enough. A soft knocking from the basement when nobody was down there. The sense of being watched in that hallway that led to the stairs. Cold patches that didn't make sense. And my Aunt Marisol told me this one line that sticks with me. The crawl space stopped feeling like a clubhouse after that. It felt like a place you weren't supposed to go. So yeah, people can call it superstition. They can call it coincidence. But if you ever found one single letter from something you watched get destroyed, sitting in the exact place you found it in the first place, like it came back on its own, I don't know. All I know is this. I've never touched a Ouija board, and I never will.